Hey everybody, welcome to the Sunday show here on the line. It is Sunday, November 30th, 2025, if you're watching us live. And if you're not watching us live, you know you can do that. We're live on Sundays at 2 p.m. Central. Oh, and I'm hearing myself. There we go. I hadn't muted the actual YouTube stream. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, after forever in a day, Shannon Q. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Coming from a secret undisclosed location.
Yes, I am better now that Shannon's here. So here's what's going on. The Sunday show, in case you don't know, and by the way, next week the Sunday show will move 1 hour earlier. Starting on the 7th, we will start airing at 1 p.m. Central instead of 2 p.m. Central. We're going to see if that shakes up the caller stuff and how we merge having multiple shows on Sunday. But we'll be going for about 3 hours or so today. And the lines are open, 720-619-2288, or there's a link down below this video to call in studio where you can call in through your cell phone device, through a web browser, etc. If you do that, please remember that once you're on hold, not only will call in studio, the app running in your browser, potentially go to sleep, but your browser will also likely go to sleep. And you may have to tap a couple of times to wake it up so that it's broadcasting audio. We are looking for, I don't know, theists in particular. Theists will always get priority on the shows that we're doing, especially Sunday shows. And we'd love to get, apologists of some variety in. If you have esoteric notions of God, you can still call in and try to convince us that there's a good reason to believe it. But by and large, if your view is just untestable, you don't even think that other people should believe it. I don't know how many book reports we need on people's personal opinions, but we'll take it. And we're happy to, in part because, let's be honest, sincere apologists, sincere Christian apologists, they're done. The serious, thoughtful Christian apologists, they have given up engaging with actual skeptics and people who have some expertise and have studied this and can counter and identify the problems. They would much rather go after Muslims who are struggling with skepticism and weak faith and convert them because they're stuck when it comes to rational evidence-based arguments. And there are folks who also, aren't as serious, who are Christian apologists, and you guys can absolutely call in. Muslim apologists, I mean, we already know the arguments are just as irrational. The evidence is just as lacking as they are with the Christian apologists. And it's even worse because Muslims are often advocating for far more immoral positions than Christians are. But they'll now kind of avoid us too. And so everything's been, as far as I can tell, debunked. There's nothing new. There's no new arguments. There's no new evidence. There's no way to demonstrate that those of us who are here doing this have overlooked something or have committed some sort of logical fallacy or error in thinking. And so, let's be honest, the apologists have given up trying. But I'm going to make a special deal for today because Shannon's here. And that is, if you want to call in and defend your God belief and you only want to talk to Shannon, I will just sit here looking all dour. And I'll even push my mute button so that when I'm tempted to go, no, it needs to, you won't even hear it. You'll see me, but you won't hear it. That is your option. If you want to include me, I am here for the inclusion. Shannon, how the hell are you?
I'm good. I'm very good. I'm excited to be back. I missed doing this with all of you and engaging with all of the callers. I'm kind of hoping, I really want somebody to call that is I think it's called maximal data or on design coincidences. I've been listening to a bunch of Lydia McGrew lately. Couple reasons. One is Paul listens to a lot of like
Sure.
apologetic stuff, and two is my favorite genre of apologetics is Christians fighting with each other. and she's been going after like William Lane Craig and all these other people. So, and Gary Habermas are just forever in fights. But I have been exposed more so to that school of apologetics recently, and I have a lot of questions and concerns about how it operates. And I would love for somebody to call in that belongs to that school, because you don't see them around as much. So if anybody here is a maximal data or undesigned coincidences proponent, I would love for you to call in, because I got questions. I have questions.
That'd be
I would love
great.
that. Or the old school, tell me why I don't deserve my bodily autonomy. I'm always up for that.
We've had the apologists.
We've
had the apologists call in with minimal facts, but we're talking about the prevalence of coincidence or coinciding events that somehow makes it rational or justified. It's a fundamental change, or it is in conflict with my own views on epistemology, that the plural of anecdote isn't data. And just because more people report something, while that does increase the likelihood that you're getting closer to some sort of accurate report, that doesn't mean that anybody's individual claim or even the broad claim is a correct model of reality. It's like, once upon a time, everybody would have reported the sun going around the earth, and it absolutely looks like that, but it's not true. I don't care what the flat earthers say. We actually live on a spinning ball. But in the meantime, we've got callers actually lining up right now, and we will always prioritize theists on this show. But we have atheists calling in first, because, as I said, there are no Christian, Muslim, Hindu apologists who have any interest in actually convincing anyone. They'd much rather preach to the choir. They'd much rather, hey, let's go down to church and praise Jesus that, the devil's really been coming after me hard, or, I've got to pray 5 times a day. I don't have time to call into a show and engage with you. It interrupts one of my prayers. Maybe that's it. Maybe we're doing the show during kind of midday prayers. But if you genuinely have, hey, I believe this sincerely, and I think there's good reason for it, we'd like to know. And I'll even go you one further. If you're a theist of some stripe and you don't think there is a good reason to believe, and you believe anyway, I'd actually like to hear about that. I'm curious as to why people are comfortable, because I've had a number of people basically say, hey, I can't prove it to you. Nobody can prove it. Nobody can prove it. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't know how you know that nobody can prove it just because nobody has. But if we assume that nobody can prove it, why do you believe it? Why are you okay accepting things that you admit it's irrational to accept? Is it a comfort thing? Is it, does it? I agree that believing false things impacts your life. That's undeniable, because even if one of the religions is true, all the rest of them are false, and they're impacting people's lives. And even if they're all false, they're still impacting those people's lives, and people, make decisions and vote and legislate based on those things, and it impacts other people's lives. I'd just like, what is your reason for believing, and what reason do you think we should believe? So here we go. Are you ready?
Oh, I was born ready, Matt. Let's do it.
Sweet. Carl is an atheist calling from North Carolina. Pronouns are he, him. Carl's calling about multiple visions and hallucinations. Wants to talk to Shannon about personal experience. Open, understand experiences he had from a skeptical position. Considers it a phenomenon. So, Carl, you are here. You are live, and you are on the air with Shannon Q.
Hello.
Well, that was quick. Hi, Matt. Hi, Shannon.
Hi.
Great to be on. I wanted to call in for a while. I saw Shannon was going to be on. I'm like, this would be the person to talk to about it. And I've been dealing with this thing for like 31 years. I had this experience.
Wow.
I've had multiple hallucinations when I was younger and like visions and stuff. But there was this one experience that happened 31 years ago, I would consider it something like getting struck by lightning. You know, it's like at the time it kind of reverted me back to like a religious indoctrination. I thought it was like God or something, but I kind of worked my
Okay.
way out of that. And well, I don't know if I should just tell you what happened. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure. Just describe what the experience is to me, and then let me know what the question is about
Right,
it.
right. So I was at work one night, and I was it was I was working in a convenience store overnight alone, and there was no traffic, no customers. I'm just doing my nightly chores or whatever, and I
Hmm.
had been you know, having conflict, inner conflict. I would consider it like they would experience like a dark night of the soul kind of thing, where I was just existential crisis or whatever. But anyway, so I kind of cried out to God or whatever. I was like, "Well, if you're there," because I wasn't believing any of that at the time. But I'm like, if you're there, you know, just, you know, whatever. So um, what happened was what I feel the experience, as I'm going to say, is okay. Like it's a little hard to talk about. I haven't talked about it in over 30 years, so it's a little
Okay.
crazy. Um, so I like left my body. Like I was, I wasn't in like the physical. I wasn't connected to my physical body. Right? It was like I didn't feel like vision wasn't the same. Like I didn't feel the material of the body. You know, that
Hmm.
you normally experience. And there was this feeling like I was traveling, but like no G-force or anything. Just but I would consider it like the Bifrost or something like in the Marvel movies, um, but not without the colors and everything, because everything was like kind of black and white, like you kind of get in a dream or something like this. Okay, where it's not necessarily black and white like you would see it watch a movie in black and white, but it like uh, different, like yeah, like you see
Experience of
light,
color
but
was different.
okay, yeah,
So your
and
perception or experience of color was different. I just want to make sure that I'm tracking. So, and
yeah,
so
yeah, take notes. It's a little
yeah,
crazy.
no, yeah,
Um,
sure. You
so this
called,
this
you called
this
out to God. Did this happen
little
like immediately after? Like, were these, like, did they happen like simultaneously? Is that what you're saying? Like, you
yeah,
called out to God, and then
like it took me
you
away
had,
like right away. Like I was just like gone for like, you know, a few seconds or whatever. But
okay.
you know, time kind of stood still or whatever. I wasn't. Um, so anyway, I'm like traveling like it seemed like a far distance, like
And this
but
took
no
a few
way of really
seconds.
knowing that or feeling it. But then I was just
Okay.
like out in the void, like it's just emptiness, and then
Hmm.
this like powerful, I would say it was like a light, an energy, force, like came and you know, I'm like, this is God or whatever, you know, like
Hmm.
um, uh, so what happened then was like I got really like scared. Like the first feeling was like fear, and then I
Hmm.
felt like humbled. You know, like I would have been on my knees if I had knees. Like I didn't have a body, right? So like it's just like coward, like a coward, not like a coward, but coward. Um,
Hmm.
and then I just felt this overwhelming like feeling of being loved, like just a warmth and the next thing you know, I was just like zoomed back into my body and I was like came out of it. And I'm like, what the fuck was that, right?
Right.
and
Okay.
and it's just like a couple of seconds later, I kind of like it. I felt like normal, like it never happened. And then I just thought about it. And like, yeah, that just happened. Like, what is that? It's like, and I, you know, it's like recently I was really close, like outside, and like lightning struck like really close by. It was boom. It was like, you know,
Hmm.
startling and yeah, I consider it something like that. Like it was just something instantaneously that happened, and yeah, I'm just
Okay.
wondering. I've heard other people have similar experiences to that, and I was just wondering what that is. If you have any
Oh, okay.
insight
So
into that.
your ultimate question is like, if I'm reading your question correctly, you're asking, what are some material explanations for an experience like that? Is that the type of thing that you're
Yeah, like
asking?
something going on in my brain. Like what's going on there?
Well, I would need, like, first. first of all, I just want to just make it very, very clear. I'm in no way a clinician, right? So this is just
Right.
consider this a above average layperson's opinion, like somebody who studied neuroscience. I would need to
Yeah, I
know a
figured you would know
lot.
better than me.
No, well, not necessarily. I mean, it's your experience. I don't want to negate your experience at all, but there are a
No, I
lot
just
of
want an
different
outside
explanations.
perspective from someone that, you know, might
Mhm.
have some insight, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to give it to you. So, in order to know like exactly what it could have been, because it could be myriad things, I would need like a
Yeah,
lot more background, like more than we would have time to go into. I would need to know like what your
sure.
general like mental state was. A lot of like, are there any other mitigating circumstances surrounding you? Did you get any kind of MRI? Like, because it could be a bunch of different things. It could be like if you were in an existential crisis, which it sounds like you said you were, and that was like kind of like a depressive, anxious sort of experience. It could
It
be
was
that
a
at
question.
that
I wasn't feeling. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
point.
I was feeling like a lack of love. I couldn't love, you know, and I was just like, and you know, you get these little things where you look back and you say, you know, like the usual suspects when you're looking at the bottom of the cup, and you get all these kind of little things, and you piece them together, and you're like, oh, God is love, and you're looking for God, and you can't find love, so then you find love, and it's God, but it's not, but it's like,
Yeah, I'm not. I'm
I
not sure.
know it's crazy.
I'm tracking that. But what I'm trying to say is that if you were like in a state of seeking, it's possible that there was like like severe like emotional reaction that caused like
Right, yeah,
your because our brains are very, very strange things, right? They're always attempting. Their
yeah,
job is to attempt to keep us. Functionally to keep us alive, right? That's what our brains are for. It's to keep us
sure,
alive, to keep us going. And part of being a living person, that is a human person in a social species, is having these emotions and this dysregulation of emotions, and that impacts us
right,
physiologically and socially. And our brain's job is to try to help us figure out how to mitigate that. So it's possible that you had just, you said you were crying out. You would have done that for a reason. It's possible that there was just an emotional
right,
reaction that
yeah, sure,
caused you to have just like a heightened flood of neurochemicals that gave you just an immediate um, experience as a response to that heavy emotion in the brain that was attempting to be counteracted, that resulted in a hallucinatory state that manifested itself as an answer to that negative emotional experience, and that was interpreted through the lens and the scaffolding and the schema
mm-hmm.
surrounding the issue that you were attempting to resolve, like when your brain is interpreting that in the hallucinatory state. That's possible. It's also possible that, it would be far more coincidental, and I think less likely, that there was like some sort of like micro stroke or actual like physical um impact in the brain, but it doesn't sound like it lasted particularly long, and it sounded like there was no long-term impacts. So if I was going to, put money down on a bet, I would say that it would be your brain's response to a really heightened emotional state that reached an apex, and it's attempting to kind of counteract that and give you an experience that addresses an issue that it saw as, threatening to your emotional state. That's what I would hang my
Yeah,
hat
cool.
on, but without knowing the context.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really great because that's kind of where I kind of been landing on something like that. Yeah, but you really put it into a perspective that I can really listen to back again and really think about. Yeah, it was just really hard because it kind of confirmed something that I wasn't really didn't consider too much at the time. You know, like a belief in the
Mhm.
God and everything. So that kind of
Yeah.
led me down a crazy kind of path.
Yeah. Well,
and
our brains aren't even really necessarily designed as, truth finding machines, as demonstrated by how wrong we are
no,
about things
yeah.
so frequently.
Yeah,
They're
it's
really designed to make us survive, and surviving as a social species, as a human, as a, an entity or a living being at all is complex enough. But we have these heightened emotional states and live in this world that frames a lot of things through a lens of religiosity. And I think in many
yeah,
ways, religion has kind of co-opted the idea of love, as though it's got the market cornered on just the perception of love in general. It's one of the things that I have the greatest problem with about religion is I think in many ways it's a bastardization of the concept of love, and that's complex if it's something that you're struggling with, which it sounds like you are, or were, at least at the time, that like the concept of love, and what is love, and where do we find love, and what does that look like, and then it's in the experience that you had to counteract that, the apex of that emotional existential crisis, ultimately landed on experience of love. It sounds like your brain gave you some love chemicals to counteract that, and the lens that it was viewed through was one that's built into the societal structures and schema that we all recognize as the paradigmatic, like, schema of what love is, what we're taught love is, and what we're attempting to pursue. What's love, baby? Don't hurt me. Matt's having a dance party. You might not be able to see it, but yeah. So that's
I've been afraid to talk to Matt about this because I knew he would hurt me.
He would, yeah. Aww. No more.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing Shannon's here, Carl, because like I'm glad you guys had a good process of working through this. I don't even like to speculate. So when people tell me, "Hey, I had a weird experience," what would you think about this?
Talk to you about it.
Okay, then we don't.
The thing is, though, like, people have these experiences all the time, and they're going to interpret them through one lens or another. I'm not saying that this is the case, but it sounds to me like you were looking for the potential of any sort of alternate explanation that isn't seen through that lens. Like the architecture that we're built into believing is the architecture of reality, which is like this religious lens, and it's market being cornered on the ideas of love and like how we should perceive love and other things as well. I'm just telling you, don't say, like, I'm not saying this is definitively the actual explanation. I'm saying that it's one that I would interpret as likely, potentially, of myriad other likely explanations that all have a founding in the operation of the brain, the science looking into it, what we know about how humans operate. That isn't, you called out to God and God was like, whipped you through the Bifrost and was like, feel love now, and then threw you back into your body so that you could know that he loved you, which is one interpretation that we're kind of groomed to think.
Cool. I'm grateful for your understanding of this, because it's a helpful, very helpful, and I think like people like the Apostle Paul or whatever, when he has this experience, supposedly when he's where he sees Jesus or something, and you have these ideas of these concepts of I'm kind of a mythicist. Like, I don't think Jesus was a real person, and I think that he hallucinated this vision of this angel Jesus kind of thing and interpreted that way, but I don't know the whole situation. But I can see having like these religious ideas and everything, and something like this happening, and going about spending your life preaching about something that really didn't happen to you. You just interpreted it that way. And I think that's where a lot of religion comes from, like these kind of weird experiences, like maybe like a burning bush kind of experience. Whether or not Moses was actually a real person, I don't believe that either. But I could see like having, it just makes sense to me that way.
Yeah, I think what a lot of us don't realize or think about is people will say, well, look at the preponderance of evidence when it comes to people who have these experiences and how they interpret it. They interpret it as it's a religious experience or it's an experience of God. But what people, like, if you step back, like, and get away from it and start to look at the patterns, like population wise, it's always an experience of the religion. That person's culture is predominantly, like,
of course.
That's a religion that permeates that culture.
If I was raised Hindu, I would have seen
you may have, maybe like that's Vishnu or whatever, right? So we're primed. We're primed through our
Of
culture
course.
to interpret these experiences these way, and that's just the case. And if you prime cultures to interpret experiences like this in that manner, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and people will. And then if you look at the evidence of that self-fulfilling prophecy and say that it's evidence for the predetermined conclusion that you're planting in everybody's heads for what these experiences are, then it's just a big circle. And I don't find that particularly interesting. I find that incredibly mundane, and I think that it's a closed system, and as such, you don't discover more about yourself or how humanity works or how the brain works, which I think is a loss to humanity, not a gain. So I prefer to
Hmm.
look at the alternate explanations that are in reality. If I'm going to hang my hat on something that I don't know definitively, I would rather have a myriad of hypotheses that exist within the realm of what we know about how reality operates than say, oh, well, that must have been God then, because that's what these experiences are. So that's my perspective for whatever it's worth. Did you find that
No, it's
helpful?
great.
Or
It's perfect.
good?
Yeah, no, it's very helpful. I just it's good to talk about it for me cathartically, and to have perspective from someone who can put the light on things. I'm not that I'm not that articulate sometimes. But I love everything you guys do. I hope somebody out there heard this and thought differently about some religious experience they had, and it helps them to shine a light on that.
Cool.
Don't get me started on that. I'll go into glossolalia. I'll go into all kinds of after near-death experiences. I'll go for days.
Yeah.
I'll let Matt talk. Sorry, Matt. I've been
Yeah, no,
monopolizing time.
people tell me,
No.
people try to point to these things as, and I'm trying to tell them, like, I've had visions, hallucinations, and stuff. Your brain does things. It doesn't,
It does, yes.
necessarily mean what you think it means.
As Wes Huff says, it fizzes.
But yeah.
Well,
All
thanks
right,
so
well,
much
thank
for
you
getting
so
us
much,
started
guys.
today,
Matt,
Carl.
please.
No, I'm just saying thanks for getting us started. I appreciate the call.
Well,
Let's chat.
wow, that's appreciated, and I appreciate everything you guys do over there, and keep up the great work, and, I'll be praying for you.
Yeah, give her.
Okay.
See how that goes.
We'll be thinking for you.
I love that.
That was one of the first little glib responses that I remember learning after I was kind of in atheist. It was like, oh, when they say I'll pray for you, I'll say I'll think for you. Yeah, okay. I don't tend to take, like, even I know Carl wasn't serious here, but I mean, even when my theist friends and family are like, oh, I'll pray for you, it's not like I take offense at it or I'm bothered. Most of the time, I recognize it's something to say. It is, the futility of not knowing what to do or what to say, but wanting to show that you care. Oh, I'll pray for you. I'll think good thoughts for you. I'll cross my fingers.
Even more so than that, some of them believe that it works. Some of them actually believe that it works. So in their mind, they think this is a thing I can do that might be effective. So I look at it through that lens. I'm like, this is your idea of helping. I don't think it'll help. I don't think you're right, but you do. And this is your idea of helping.
If somebody sincerely thought that crossing their fingers was going to help, I would be appreciative of the thought behind the gesture, even though I don't think crossing your fingers is going to do anything. So we've got a couple of theistic callers, or a theist and a deist, and I'm going to start with Olivia. Olivia is calling from Arizona, pronouns she, her. Olivia's a deist. Once recognizes that they don't necessarily have a good argument for it, but wanted to talk to atheists and skeptics and get some perspective. So, Olivia, welcome. You are on with Shannon Q and maybe me.
Maybe. See how it goes.
Well, I sure hope I get to hear from you, Matt, because you're part of the reason I called today.
Yay, I matter.
You do.
Anyway, how can we help?
Yeah, so, well, like I said on there, I'm a deist. I wasn't sure how you guys preferred me to put down. I used to put down theist when I called in, but I'm not really part of any organized religion. I just have spiritual beliefs. And you mentioned earlier in the call that you wanted to have people in my situation call in. So I guess the thing that always kind of is difficult for me to figure out motivates atheists and skeptics is a very important thing to me in life is feeling like I am constantly learning for something that's going to come after I die. And that gives me a lot of hope in the world to think that there is something else past all this, even though I have no evidence of that. I can't prove it, but to feel like there is something that that this isn't just it. It's not just the neurons in my brain are going to go dead one day and then that's it. I'm going to disappear forever. So the idea of the soul is very comforting to me. I guess you could say it's a crutch or it's a coping mechanism, but it's very important to me for my own mental health in general. So I'm curious how you guys sort of come to terms with the fact that you're going to inevitably die, and in your worldview, that's just it. You're just going to be gone forever.
We're different people, so I think we're going to have different answers. I'll let Matt go first because I never shut up. Let me mute myself.
I'm probably really weird. I definitely believed in a soul. I believed in an afterlife. I was a fundamentalist Southern Baptist Christian. But when I figured out that I didn't have good reason to believe it, I didn't have any of the crises that some of my other former Christians have. And so I didn't, to me, I've described it before as it's as if somebody told me I was going to inherit $1 billion on my 30th birthday. And then I get close to my 30th birthday and I find out, oh, that's not true. I could spend the rest of my life lamenting the fact that I didn't get $1 billion and being mad about it and being upset. I don't work that way. And I'm very kind of pragmatic. As soon as I figured out, oh, this isn't true, I'm a little pissed off that somebody, misled me, but they were well-intentioned too, and they genuinely thought it was true. So I'm not mad at them. But it's very much there doesn't appear to be anything I can do about it. And when we talk about something like a soul, to me, there are a number of positions in various religions that are untestable, unfalsifiable, and yet they might be comforting, but there's no way to show that they're real. In this case, I think there's ways to show that the soul does not exist and probably cannot exist, at least as described in that sense. And so the notion of an afterlife that I would experience seems not just not demonstrably true, but demonstrably not true, or at least as close as we can get to it. And so I don't experience any existential dread or depression or anything about that, because I feel, instead of feeling like I've lost something, I feel like I've gained something, because instead of being tied to something, a claim that is at least not demonstrably true and possibly demonstrably not true, to borrow from Aaron, it's freeing. Like, I'm not stuck with a delusion. I'm not stuck with misinformation. Now I get to explore the world and say, okay, how should I live this one life that I know I'm going to get? And if there is an afterlife, isn't it just a bonus anyway? And until somebody gives me some way that I can do something about a potential afterlife, not my problem. I got better shit to do than worry about an afterlife that may or may not exist. So I just kind of keep going.
My answer is going to be a bit different, but probably along a similar vein. So the soul was the thing that fell apart for me probably first, because I studied neuroscience, and once you get down to the finite level, there's a lot of problems that really couldn't be answered for me when it comes to the soul, just knowing from neuroscience. And I won't get into that right now. And actually, this will probably help explain some of it. I was about to apologize because it takes me a bit to search for words now. One of the reasons I've been away from the show for a while, amongst a myriad of reasons, is I have multiple sclerosis and I have new lesions in my thalamus and my frontal cortex. I used to be able to effortlessly find a word, and now I kind of have to search for words when I'm speaking more so than I used to. So my apologies for that, but that kind of factors into the way that, my brain has had something happen to it that impacts, who I am and how I think. And that's one of the reasons that the soul fell apart for me. So once I was disabused of that and I just couldn't believe it anymore, even though I wanted to, I did want to believe it. because like you said, it was comforting. I liked the idea then, and I'm going to tell you why I don't even like it now, and I'm glad that I was disabused of it. Of, you know, I'll see my loved ones later, and I'll continue on. I didn't have to deal with my mortality in the same way when I was oriented in that manner towards, you know, what reality was when it came to like my longevity as an entity. Once I realized that that wasn't the case, that, you know, my neurons, you know, the sodium ion channels shut down, my neurons die, and that's the end of me as far as I'm concerned. I had to do some real deep thinking about, oh, okay, well, what does it mean to orient myself towards, you know, now towards my real life, as opposed to orienting myself towards a hypothetical, you know, afterlife that I'm uncertain of. And I realized, and this is what made me happy ultimately, that having an orientation towards a hypothetical that I'm uncertain of in the distant future was changing the way that I lived my life in a way that did not serve me. It didn't serve me. I was making decisions based on a hierarchical structure that was not in the foundation of reality. And as a result, I was in this type of crisis, fearing my death and oriented towards evading my death instead of grappling with the reality of my ultimate death, and instead having the locus of focus be what I have and I know is tangible. And once I reoriented my focus on investing in myself, in the reality that I know for certain I have and is tangible, I started making better decisions and coping better as a result, because I was no longer afraid of that future or trying to evade the inevitability of that future. I was actually working through and doing the emotional work to accept the reality of that future. Now, if you put me and you side by side, let's just say that there is some, because you said you're a deist. Let's just say that there is an afterlife. Let's say, just for the sake of this argument, let's just say that there is. Both of us end up there in your belief system, but I'm less worried about it than you are. And I'm more focused on the now and not constantly grappling with the fear of that, because I've already done the emotional work to figure out what that means for me if it's not real, which I think is the better emotional strategy. At least it was for me. I can't tell you what the good strategy is for you, but that was the best strategy for me, and I was better for it. I no longer fear it. I know it's an inevitability, and I don't know what happens after. Speculating on what might happen after or might not happen after doesn't serve me. So that's my answer.
Okay.
Thoughts?
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just throwing it back to you. I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Okay. Yeah, so, all right, I've been sitting here really trying to take in what you both are saying, and I think I have a pretty good idea of, like, what's motivating you two, but I do want to clarify real quick to make sure I understand. I think I see a little bit of a through line for both of your reasons for it. I'd like you to clarify if I'm off base here, but it seems like both of your definitions for why, well, the key difference, I think, between how you two look at it and the way I look at it is you see it as freeing because you feel that an afterlife existing would give you some form of moral imperative to take action in this life. Am I understanding that right?
I don't think I said anything even in the ballpark of that.
No, it is nothing. I didn't engage in the concept of morality at all, and I don't think that matters. So it did. Sorry, it has nothing to do
have to be with a moral imperative.
Really, no. It's really strange to me that we went and don't. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to beat you up. I genuinely, like, you talked about this being important for your mental health. I would like to understand that, but we talked about from a practical standpoint where we both are. And what you just said, if I were to paraphrase it, was you think we feel freed from having to consider the moral responsibilities of our actions because we're not worried about where we're going to end up. And neither of us mentioned anything at all about that. It's not even a factor. I only care about what's true, not what's convenient.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I care about what's true and slightly different. I think you're focusing a bit on what I had to say, which was once I oriented myself towards the reality that my life would end and that would be it, then I was starting to approach my life, my philosophy on my life differently. And this is the most important part. I had to grapple with my mortality in a very tangible, real way. Instead of saying, okay, well, I don't really need to grapple with my mortality because there's going to be something after. And I existed in a Christian infrastructure, so I was orienting myself towards an afterlife and making decisions based in that infrastructure. It's going to be different for everybody, but that was the infrastructure that I was operating within. So that's what I was speaking about, is like I was making decisions based on trying to reach that goal of being in the afterlife, even if those decisions didn't serve me. Moral, immoral, amoral, whatever. Even if they didn't serve me, weren't good for me, or weren't good for others, I was making those decisions sometimes against my better judgment and against, my own thoughts and orientation on how I should act, because I was trying to achieve that goal instead of being oriented towards achieving the goals of serving myself, my community, my family, my friends, the world, in reality, in this life. And I was better at doing that once I disabused myself of the idea of an afterlife, grappling with my mortality as a reality was better for my mental health. And then I was able to, make better decisions, arguably, and I think objectively better decisions for myself and everyone around me. Does that clarify a bit?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I still am not totally sure. I want to address what you had to say, Matt, but I'm going to put a pin on that first because I want to clarify something with Shannon here. So, Shannon, you said that, so would you say that the issue you take with the idea of there being an afterlife is that it would change how you act now, though? Or is it just like because of it not being true, like what Matt said?
So I'm going to address this from two directions, I think. Because first I have to deal with the reality that my concept of the afterlife when I had one was specifically the Christian one, right? So orienting myself towards that is what I was speaking to. Let's take that out of it. Let's just say there's just this generic, ubiquitous potential afterlife, right? Let's just remove Christianity from it entirely. What I was saying is that and I'll go back to the you and I side by side. You and I are side by side. If there's an afterlife, period, that everybody gets to go to, regardless, right? Like you don't have to do anything special to get into it. It's just, it's just part of being an entity is you have a corporeal form, you die, and then there's an afterlife. Let's operate on that hypothetical. Nobody knows what it is. We just assume it's there. Assuming that it's there doesn't help me grapple with the reality of my mortality in this life. If anything, it helps me avoid grappling with that reality. And
Okay.
I don't think that avoidance was serving me specifically, and I'm not sure it serves anyone, because if you have dissonance or emotional conflict relating to something in your life that is an inevitability, 100% objectively an inevitability, figuring out how to grapple with that as a reality is, I think, objectively better. Assuming that there's an extra level to existence that there is no way to know is real. And I would argue there are ways to know that it isn't real, because I don't think that the soul is even possible for myriad reasons. That does not help me grapple with that reality. It orients me towards a coping mechanism instead of that it is arguably, I think, not real, and there's no way to know if it is. Like I would hope say, there's no way I can know that it is. It can be comforting. I can like the idea of it, but I can't know that it's a certainty. A comforting uncertainty doesn't help me grapple with and contend with and mitigate my emotions towards an inevitability that is an absolute certainty. So I like the strategy of grappling with the inevitability that's an absolute certainty better than assuaging that emotional conflict by a hypothetical that feels comforting but doesn't address the actual root of where that emotional conflict is sourced.
Okay. And so this is really interesting to me because everything you said just now makes a lot of sense. And I completely agree with you 100% about how it doesn't really matter whether there is an afterlife or not. In your case, because you're going to be dead if there is, or you'll be there if there is one, and then if there isn't one, then it doesn't matter. But for me, that looking at it from that perspective is really terrifying, and the opposite is comforting to think that it can be that I can expect there to be something, and then if there isn't, it doesn't matter because I'm dead and I won't know. I won't care anyway.
So why is that comforting? It's comforting for you because you don't like the idea of the inevitability of your mortality?
Because it makes me feel if I try and go through life with the notion that this is all I get and I'm never gonna have anything else, this could sound really like weird and lazy, but it makes me feel like I have to make more of a difference in the world versus just doing what I prefer to do. Not to say like I don't like, I go to protests and stuff and take part in activism, but I feel like it would put a lot more pressure. I would put a lot more pressure on myself if I felt like this is all I get. This is the only life I get to live. But if I have an endless afterlife, then I can live whatever the heck I want.
So, okay, that's interesting. I think we're getting to something because it tells me that one of the reasons that it's comforting for you is not even just the idea of your mortality, like life ending being scary. It's because it means that this is the reality that this is the only life you get increases its value, makes it more important, and that means that you would have to have a different orientation towards it. And not necessarily, by the way, I don't think that means that you should put that kind of pressure on yourself. These are the types of things that I had to explore, right? I had similar thoughts, not identical, but similar thoughts. And I had to figure that out. The idea of the afterlife, I realized, was an excuse for avoidance in many ways of things that I needed to and should contend with in order to be the best version of myself for myself and everybody else around me. And there might be an answer to that question for you that you're not exploring because the question is scary. You're assuming the answer is that you need to do more or that you're not providing enough value. You're assuming that's the answer, but you're able to avoid it because you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to exist forever anyway. So, that I don't have to worry about that because I'll have forever. But I would even arguably, if you have forever, do you think that forever allows you to interact with this reality? And if not, why isn't that still a valuable question?
Well, that's a really good point. I guess the way I look at it is whether I can interact with this reality or not doesn't necessarily matter.
Well, does this reality matter?
I would deal with the tools that I get in the afterlife.
So you're willing to just disregard absolutely everything about this reality, and it ultimately doesn't matter just because maybe there's an afterlife?
Well, no, I recognize that I'm here and now, and I use the tools I have now to impact now.
Okay. How much better are you at working in the reality you experience if you're worried about an afterlife that might or might not exist than if you're not?
I don't worry about the afterlife. I just think that's going to be the thing that comes later.
Is there just one afterlife that everybody gets in your view?
Well, I'm not going to have a very satisfying answer. My answer is I don't know. But
Okay.
it's
Is
just
it,
comes
not
pretty
is
clear
it
to be one.
possible? Is it possible that there are good afterlives and bad afterlives available to you?
Maybe. It could be. I would hope there isn't.
Good question.
I would hope it's just equal.
So going back to touch on my thing real quick to tie this together. When I was a Christian, how I acted had no bearing on my afterlife. My particular view of Christianity, which is fairly typical, is that you're either saved or you're not. You're either forgiven or you're not. You're either going to the good afterlife or you're not, based entirely on the grace of God and nothing that you do. God grants you the grace by which you exercise the faith to be a redeemed person, and you'll either go to the afterlife or not. So morality was irrelevant for anything other than living the right life to reflect the glory of God. And this came about, well, in my Father's house there are many mansions and they're not all the same. And so your rewards in the afterlife were going to be based more about, did you serve? Did you, teach? Did you allow the Holy Spirit to work? Did you, reflect a morally upstanding life? But the disposition of your soul about whether you were going to heaven or hell had nothing to do with your moral actions. You could be a mass murderer and go to heaven. You could be nearly righteous and potentially go to hell if you weren't chosen, if you hadn't taken that step. Once I changed my view of morality to value morality as a primary consideration, that change happened whether there's an afterlife or not. I changed my view about morality, whether there is an afterlife or not, because I recognize that the life we're experiencing now is the only one I know for sure exists. And every second I spend worrying about some other afterlife that I don't have any way to do anything about is a second wasted. And if in fact we have a limited time, why would I want to waste it on that? And not just a matter of why would I want to. There's no path to, nobody's been able to show a path by which I can reach the right answer or even know if there is a right answer. So my rejection of an afterlife, my acceptance of an afterlife, if it were to happen right now, is about whether or not there's good reason to think it's true. It's completely separate from morality. And for me, as a Southern Baptist fundamentalist Christian, it always was completely separate from morality. As a matter of fact, the I go to church on Easter and Sunday quasi fake wishy-washy Christians who had in their head, I hope I'm good enough to get to heaven, had never read their fucking Bible, did not know doctrine, and were actually engaged in an act of blasphemy that the devil was leading them straight to hell. So if there's an afterlife is one question. I don't know how to address that. I don't see any reason why it could even possibly be true. And I see many reasons why it can't be. But if there is one, then the next one is, what do I need to do in my life to determine what sort of afterlife I'm going to have, or is it just one for everybody? And if I don't have a path to even find answers to those, they become non-issues. It's like asking me why I'm not out looking for Bigfoot right now. I have no reason to think there is a Bigfoot. I have no reason to think that I would know anything at all about where and how to search to find one. So why waste my time?
Yeah.
So would
I think
you say? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I was just going to say something super fast. Believe it or not, I'm capable of that sometimes. Like my orientation towards it is, even if it is true, I don't think it is. For the record, I don't even think it's possible. But even if it is true, it's a useless concept psychologically. It's an ineffective and sometimes detrimental idea, and thus I don't engage with it because I have no way of knowing. And even if it is true, it doesn't fucking matter. And sometimes can change the way people make decisions because it's an escape hatch. And I don't think escape hatches are emotionally, psychologically healthy.
So, okay, let me ask you about this then. What would you say to a person that just says that, like, if they are, okay, let's say I was totally on board with just giving up on the afterlife thing entirely, but that just makes my life more difficult and I'm more depressed because of it, because I feel like there's less to my existence now.
Seculartherapy.org.
Beneficial to me in the end?
Yeah, what Matt said, seculartherapy.org. And I would also say, what if I was an alcoholic and that helped me escape the things I need to grapple with? And if I stopped drinking, then I would need to grapple with them. Would you tell me to stop drinking? Yeah, you would probably, because I'm doing it to escape. I'm doing it to avoid contending with something that needs to be contended with. So what I would say is, if you need that idea to feel safe and happy and not depressed, you have some work to do that you should do for the sake of yourself to explore what the root of that is and contend with it so that it's no longer impacting your life in a detrimental way. And it is possible to do that, to contend with those things. It is possible and beneficial to do so. So if somebody's concept of the afterlife is what's keeping them from a depression, I would want to know what was causing that depression, that and have that be contended with, have that be dealt with, have that be explored. So because that is the problem. That's the problem.
Well, I guess it would just be a sense of like powerlessness in the universe, because I mean, I'm completely irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. By all, like,
that makes you just like the rest of us. That makes you just like the rest of us. Why is it uncomfortable to think that you have the same power level as all the rest of us?
And also, what is
I want everyone to have more than what they have.
Well,
what's
what
your
we
schema
want
for relevance?
and what is it aren't the same thing. I would like for there to be no poverty and no hunger, but that's not the reality. It's a reality we might be able to work towards, but sitting around thinking it's real doesn't make it real. And what it does is it makes you not spend time trying to make it real.
Yeah, I'd like my immune system to stop eating my brain. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But I can't make that happen. So I have to grapple with it, right? I can't wrap a warm blanket around myself and not deal with it. I have to deal with it, right? So I'm dealing with it. So, like, I guess if like not, we don't, you need to, it sounds like you need to talk to a professional, but if your feeling is that because there is no afterlife, that makes you irrelevant, you should ask yourself some questions about how does an afterlife make you relevant? Why does that make you any more relevant, especially if your concept is everybody goes there regardless? You're a person here amongst many and will be a person there amongst many. So now you have to examine your idea of what it means to be relevant, and why it matters to you. Those are the important questions.
It seems like you're struggling with this frustration of not. There were extraordinary stories and promises potentially told around the world, and you liked them. And then when you found out you didn't have any good reason to believe they were true, that made you sad. So you're opting to pretend, and I don't mean to accuse you of lying. I just can't think of a better word. Pretend that you believe something you don't believe because it brings you comfort. And what Shannon just asked is the question that I've been wondering, which is, what about this brings you any comfort? The notion that you think there is, or probably is, some sort of afterlife that you don't know anything about, don't know what it's like, don't know how to get there. And there's no guarantee that it makes you any more special or gives you any more power, even if it were real. And yet, for some reason, you find this nebulous thing that you have no way to demonstrate as real, comforting on a particular issue that I don't see a connection with. I mean, it's almost as if you told me, hey, believing in an afterlife increases the number of dollars in my bank account. It's almost like you said that, because that's how absurd it feels to me. I don't understand how this increases dollars in your bank account, increases your power level, provides any comfort. It would, and I might be the weird one, it would absolutely destroy my sanity if I was sitting here engaged in levels of cognitive dissonance to be saying, oh, I'm really worried about this, so I'm going to pretend to believe this thing that I know I don't have good reason to believe, even though if it were true, it wouldn't fix the problem.
Well, that's definitely a lot to chew on. You make some very good points. I saw someone in the chat a little while ago say I believe in Pascal's placebo, which I thought was kind of funny.
It's kind of funny, actually. Pascal's placebo.
I like that.
Good job, whoever that was in chat. I like that.
You're not hired, but I'll consider it.
Yeah, I don't want you to feel attacked, Olivia. And I know that sometimes these types of conversations can feel like that, especially because Matt and I both have a very way of communicating our ideas.
Right.
But ultimately, I'm concerned with people's well-being and their mental health. I'm very much invested in that. And when I hear you talking about this, what I hear through my lens of viewing the way these conversations work is there's some stuff that bothers me and I find it difficult to contend with. And that, like, it doesn't make me feel good. It gives me the to worry about that stuff. This is a way that I've found to feel better about it that seems to be somewhat working sometimes, or at least allows me to, avoid immediately contending with it every time it comes up, because it's a comforting counter thought. But it doesn't even sound like you fully explored why it's a comforting counter thought and critically analyzed what even your concept is of the afterlife, why it would exist, what it would look like. It's this, generic, ubiquitous, not well flushed out concept that is emotionally comforting when it comes to contending with some things that are worth contending with. And I would love for you to be able to contend with those things and work through to the other side of them, because as somebody who's had to do it and done it, I'm glad I did. And I want more people to be able to do it, because I feel better now. I'm not bogged down by constantly trying to figure out if I can contend with it, what it would look like to contend with it. I did the work, and it is work, and I'm the better for it. So I would want that for you too.
Could I ask one? Well, I know we've been going a long time here, but can I ask you one more quick question, Shannon?
Yeah, sure.
So Matt said something a little bit earlier that made a lot of sense to me, where he said that to him, my logic feels like I was saying that that believing in afterlife is similar to saying if I believe in afterlife, it is like that it puts more money in my bank account. Is that what you said, Matt? I don't want to misrepresent.
Yeah, something like that. That's okay. It felt something like that.
Okay. Shannon, do you feel the same way about that?
I'm not sure.
Is that kind of how you interpret what I say?
That believing in an afterlife is analogous to believing there's more money in your bank account, making you feel comfortable about financial stress. Is that what the analogy is? No. I just want to make sure I understand it.
No.
Then I don't understand. So I can't answer because I don't fully grasp what's happening.
saying
I probably didn't explain it very well.
Saying that you believe there's an afterlife because it comforts you is like saying you believe in an afterlife because it actually increases the money in your bank account. There's no evidence of that happens, and there's no evidence that could possibly happen. And so when you tell me that that's your reason why, it's still, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm grateful. You took the prompt, you called in. I don't feel like I have a better understanding of how or why somebody can say, I believe something for which I recognize they don't have a good reason. But as we went through this, it was when you gave your reasons, even if we were to accept your reasons, there's nothing about your afterlife model that even under your description in any way should accomplish the goals that you're talking about. And yet that was your reason. And that's why, to me, it felt like you might as well be saying, you know, my bank account has more dollars in it when it doesn't.
I like that. Okay, now I understand it. And I also really like it because if you were able to convince yourself that that was the case, then it elucidates some of the other problems, which are, if you really do believe that that is the case, you're going to make different decisions as a result of believing that's the case. And some of them will be detrimental to you because it's not, you have no way of knowing if it is. And if it's not, and you commit yourself to spending that money or making decisions based on the idea that that money is there, you're going to put yourself in debt. And you would have made different decisions, better decisions that were based in the foundations of reality that served you better and didn't put you in that, you know, dangerous and detrimental situation. So I like that analogy because I think it also elucidates those. So yeah, I would agree with Matt. Now that I get it. Sorry
Okay.
that I needed clarification.
So now Shannon is also correct.
Okay, sorry.
I'm also correct. Now. It took me a minute. But I got there.
Please continue, Libby.
Sorry, we're assholes to each other, Olivia. It's not you.
No problem. Okay, so with that established, I do want to clarify something. I guess I probably didn't explain this very well, and I think this is kind of where the disconnect is. I'm not looking at the afterlife as if it is something that's affecting me now. It's not that it's putting money in my bank account, it's that it's going to put money in my bank account after money has no value anymore and we're like in a post-money society, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter anymore.
Is it contingent on you believing that's going to happen?
No.
Then it's an absolutely useless position. You have a belief, and your acceptance or rejection of that belief is irrelevant to whether or not it will happen, and it is an untestable, unfalsifiable proposition that you have no reason to think could happen. So I don't know what value there is in believing something if the belief is irrelevant and there's no reason to think that the thing you're believing in is true. It's like saying, I believe in Bigfoot, but I have no way of exploring it, and it doesn't do me any good right now. And whether I believe in Bigfoot or not is irrelevant because I know that when I die, Bigfoot is going to come dig me up and magically revive me in a forest somewhere in the middle of Alaska. Or I believe that's what's going to happen. But if
then I can get the money out of my bank account.
Yeah, it is. I don't know what. First of all, I can't believe things unless I have good reason to think they're true. I don't ever believe things or try to never believe things merely because they are beneficial or feel good. But in this case, you're saying that your belief is irrelevant and you have no reason to think that it's true. And yet you still find some comfort in believing that it's true. How is that anything other than a perfect description of intentional self-deception?
Okay, that's a really good point. I guess it boils down to being true doesn't necessarily matter if I don't exist by the time it ends up being true.
But you exist now. Do you think that believing it now has no consequences?
What consequences would it have? I don't feel that it does.
So everything that you think is true is the result of some heuristic model in your head where you have reasoned your way to think that either this is true or it is beneficial to think this is true. Whatever that heuristic is that led you to that, if in fact the thing that you're believing is false, that means you have a heuristic in your brain that will lead you to false conclusions. And you may use that same model of thinking, that same process to evaluate other claims as well. It's like saying, hey, I've got a calculator and I'm going to trust it, whether it gives me the right answer or not. And somebody's saying, I don't think that's the right answer. It's giving you answers for things where we shouldn't even be able to calculate. Yeah, but I'm going to trust it. And so you take that calculator and you go around and start doing your bills. That's going to have some consequences. You could wind up completely broke or incredibly wealthy, but you have no way of knowing which one. Why would you willingly use a broken tool?
Yeah, and there's also a reason why you're attached to the concept, right? Like, because I just heard you say, well, when I die, if it's true, then awesome. And if it's not true, I'll never know. So what does it really matter if I believe it or not? Well, you do believe it. Why? Why are you attached to the belief? Like, I think Matt and my brains maybe operate a little bit differently than some other people's, and I need to recognize that. Where I'm not capable of having a belief that just exists because it feels like a warm blanket. I I strive to, at least, or think I try to have beliefs that are based in tangible, provable things, and I am happy to sit in the discomfort of saying I don't know this, I don't understand it, maybe I'll never know. But you have yeah.
Sorry. The other little thing about this, you're asking what harm could it do? Well, let's imagine that there is an afterlife out there, but it's not the one you believe. How much time are you going to spend looking for the right one if you think you've already found it? In fact, your false belief could prevent you from finding the only true afterlife that's out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, because it seems like a ubiquitous sort of generic afterlife that you believe in based on not necessarily reasons at all, but like, how do you know? Like, how do you know that exists? Did you explore all of the potential concepts of an afterlife? Like, what if you are striving for the wrong one?
I'm not betting on a specific one. I'm betting pretty explicitly on I don't know, and whatever's going to happen. Now I'm back to the why. Happen.
Why are you betting on that? Why do you need to bet? What's your collateral in this bet? Maybe it's something you need and should value and take care of instead of putting it up as collateral on this bet. Why are you betting?
Jesus is going to fuck you up.
I don't believe. I'm not Christian.
It doesn't matter. What if it's true? If Christianity is true, Jesus is going to fuck you up, and it's going to be because you rejected a belief in part because you accepted something else, or you were betting on something else.
Well, he would fuck me up anyway because I would never bet. I would never worship a god as evil as how Yahweh is portrayed.
Okay, that's really convenient that you're going to take the high ground while taking the low ground on sound epistemology.
Well, that's fair. I don't mean to be dishonest with that.
I don't even know if it's just... lots of people are capable of... I mean, I believe stuff probably for all the wrong reasons because I didn't fully explore things. I kind of trusted others and authority figures, and then didn't really invest in exploring concepts and making my own epistemology because that's the system I was brought up in. And there's vestigial components of that when you deconvert. And one of them is trying to figure out how you form beliefs. And sometimes we form beliefs not for good reasons, and then they stick with us for comforting reasons. And it sounds like you're talking to us right now, so you're willing to explore it. My primary concern is that it's a coping mechanism to address something. It sounds like I'm more and more convinced of that as we're calling, and I don't want something that you should deal with to be the best version of yourself to be collateral in a bet that you will never know if you win.
Yeah, my thing is that I care about what's true, and I think it is fair to call it dishonest. I just don't view it as if you're like being a bad person or intentionally lying. You are acknowledging that you care more about what your personal preference for an afterlife is than what actual afterlife might exist. Oh, I won't worship that because that's a monster. Well, that's completely independent from whether or not that monster is real and whether or not there is some potential afterlife there. Oh, I don't want that kind of afterlife. Well, the kind of afterlife you want is irrelevant to the kind of afterlife you are or aren't going to get. And to me, it's just all I care about is it true? Is there something I can do about it? I don't give a fuck what sort of afterlife I would prefer or you would prefer or anybody else would prefer. To me, it's all sophistry and a waste of time. It is. And that's why I guess I'm confused as to what do you get out of inventing the thing that you'd prefer and acting as if you have, and well, you're not even acting as if you have some reason to believe it. You're believing it while acknowledging you don't have a reason to believe it, and that you also don't care whether it's true.
Well, the more that this is such a fascinating talk because, like, I forget which of you mentioned it before about how I have it. One of you said you don't think I've thought too deeply about this before, and honestly, you're probably right. You've given me a whole lot to chew on here. Shannon said something before that I think is relevant to what you just asked, Matt, where she asked me why does it have to be a bet, and what is my collateral on betting? And I guess in my mind, the answer is I don't have to. It is almost nothing. And in my mind, I'm not betting anything, and there's a potential win. So I guess the Pascal's placebo thing is more accurate.
But it's not a potential win.
First.
You just you think everybody's going to win, and so you're not betting anything on something that everybody's going to win.
I guess you're betting on the truth of it. I would need to know what kind of like tangible issues it would bring me to keep this belief, because so far I've been pretty unconvinced by what you say.
How strange that you're wanting to know what tangible benefits it would give you or cost you. I don't know which one to keep this belief. Why are you okay having beliefs to begin with that you acknowledge don't have good justification? Why is that okay?
I mean, I guess that would basically go into solipsism, but my thought process is it's just not something I'm able to comprehend at the moment.
Why do you want it to be true? Why do you feel attached to it? I think that's the answer. There's a reason that you want or need or feel that it's better for it to be true, which means that there's something that would be difficult to contend with or is uncomfortable to deal with for you if it's false. And I think the detrimental thing is not actually contending with that, avoiding contending with that. Because what if it is false? Let's Pascal's reality instead of Pascal's placebo. What if it is false and you never contend with whatever that is? You never grapple with it. You never operate within reality and see what contending with that means. And you just go to the end and then there's nothing after. And you never address that, even though it could have made things tangibly better for you in the now to not avoid dealing with that. Why not just deal with that?
And I completely see where you're coming from, but I guess that the part that isn't making sense to me is like when Matt talked earlier about the idea of having a broken calculator. I don't see how it's broken because I don't see any of the problems so far that would cause it.
You don't see how believing something that is potentially false and you have no way of verifying whether or not it's false means that your calculator that led to that answer that you have no way of verifying is true or false. You don't see how that's a problem?
Yeah, you're admitting that you have a belief that you haven't
demonstrate that it's not working, right?
No. Now you're
admitting that you have a belief that you've not explored and demonstrated to be true. That you're admitting that you believe something and you have absolutely no idea if it's true.
You're basically
You're not just
saying
admitting it,
I'm
you're
going to keep
arguing that
using.
you should.
You're going to keep. You're saying you're going to keep using your calculator until somebody proves it's broken when you have no reason to think it worked right in the first place. It's never. You're not even checking the answers to see if those answers are true. You're just writing them down. You are engaged in a futile waste of time exercise that has no tie to the truth, and you don't see that that's a problem. I do.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what I'm trying to say is like, if I was arguing ardently right now that there is a purple dinosaur with bird wings in the next room that no one can see, but I like the idea that it's there. It makes me feel better to know that it's there. And I mean, well, no one will ever know because every time you open the door, it disappears. Every time you open the door, it disappears, but it's there. I know that it's there. I like feeling like it's there. You would that would sound weird, right? Because it should, because I'm manifesting it. It'll never be proven
Not
right or
necessarily.
wrong, and I'm admitting that I just believe it because it's comforting. So that's not a great way to form beliefs, right? Shouldn't I
don't
figure?
see why it would be a problem for you to have your imaginary dinosaur.
Because it
Oh
tells
my
you a lot
God.
about how I form beliefs, especially if I'm willing to go on a public platform and argue for it, right? That's like saying it. I don't care if I believe things that are true. It's important to me that I get to keep being comforted, even though it may or may not be true, and I have no way of proving if it is. And I could argue, like, if we could get into the weeds, I know we've been talking for a long time about why a soul isn't even possible. Like, I could do a PowerPoint presentation about how your neurons work and all of the problems with all of the different concepts of the soul. And it doesn't even sound like you've explored that either, which is a necessary precondition for there to be an afterlife, is that there has to be a non-corporeal form of you. And I don't believe that that's possible from first principles. So, like, why do you want to believe things that you can't demonstrate and people have demonstrated, I think quite well aren't viable? Why do you want to believe them? Why are you arguing? Like, you have the right to believe it. Are you arguing? Do you want us to tell you that it's cool? 'Cause we don't think it is, I guess. That you recognize
I don't
something.
expect you to care.
I do
But we
care.
do care because we have to share a fucking planet with people who've decided that they don't give a shit about the truth. They're going to believe what they want to believe because it's comfortable. No, and they're going to keep doing it, forcing other people to not only do the hard work of finding the truth, but do the hard work of showing how this belief is actually harmful. If your tool is broken, your measurement is unreliable. Period. It may be correct, it may not be correct. If you don't care to demonstrate whether or not it's correct or not, I cannot.
Yeah.
This is the most frustrating thing to be in this world right now where we have more access to more information than ever, and where it is becoming increasingly difficult to tell the difference between true claims and false claims, and to run across people who don't give a fuck about the truth and want to push the burden onto everybody else to show how they're fucking up instead of figuring out, hey, how do I make sure I'm using the right tools to evaluate things? It matters. You're having consequences on my life right now.
And your own too. And like, I care about you as a person because you're a person, and I care about people. And if you have an epistemological mental framework and schema that operates in such a way that you just hold on, like you just white knuckle beliefs that you have no way of demonstrating, that permeates your thought process and how you engage with your life and how you engage with others. Speaking towards, what Matt said, it's as though there are facts that you can operate under, but you like the alternative facts. We'll take this path instead, even though it's not verifiable because it's more comfortable. And that's a
Fake
problem.
news.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't
you
want
are
my brain to be
sucking up
fake news.
like a vacuum and just going, I'll just go with it until somebody shows me there's a problem. Well, everybody's not here to do your homework for you.
Well, I'm sorry that I'm sorry about the turn that this call has really taken.
Oh, it took a turn. This is.
I'm not sure.
Okay. I tell you what, Olivia,
Matt,
I tell
I'm
you
trying
what,
really
I
hard
tell
to
you,
be honest and vulnerable here, and like I don't know why.
Olivia. We're going to let you go now. We've been talking for 55 minutes and we've been here incredibly patient. We've been answering stuff. We've been pointing out things. And at the end of it now, you're going to be, oh, this is taking a turn because you're flat out saying, hey, I don't care if it's true. Hey, until somebody shows me that it's causing a problem, I'm going to keep going with it. And we've tried to point out what the actual problem is with that. And you are unwilling to consider that and just want somebody else to do the work for you. And then when we point out the brute fact of that, oh, now the call is taking a turn. Okay, let's all pause rather than getting in a fight. And you go off and think about the tons of things you can rewind that Shannon and I said. And if you come up with this decision that you actually care about whether or not things are true, and you actually understand that running around believing whatever you want just until somebody shows you there's a problem is a bad idea, or if you come up with a good idea for what you believe, call us back.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Olivia. I hope she finds her way to caring about whether or not she believes things that are true. It's hard. Like if you say, I don't actually care if my beliefs are true, so long as they're not harming anybody. I don't even think that's true. Like not believing things that I would argue are verifiably false, but definitely believing things that you have no idea if they are true and holding on to that, having that orientation towards belief. That's scary to me because that leads to a lot of negative outcomes, both for the individual. Like, if you can't care about others, not saying Olivia doesn't care about others, but at the very least, you should care enough about yourself to put in the investment to do the work to be the best version of yourself. So I hope she does that. Analyzes why it's so important to her to not care if things are true. Why? There's a why there. Figure it out.
I think that everybody does care about whether or not things are true. It's just that when it's not obvious or convenient, when it's actually going to require a little bit of work, until somebody shows them why they should do that work, we're just fucking lazy. And, oh, well, this doesn't appear to be causing a problem. I don't see a problem. Why would it matter? Why can't I just run around believing whatever I want willy-nilly? In that sense, they don't care about the truth. But here's the thing. If you're getting ready to cross the street, you care about whether or not your sensory data is reliable, whether or not there are cars coming. You are unlikely, if there's traffic, to willingly close your eyes and trust some unreliable epistemology and walk across that busy highway. That's because there's an obvious risk there. I don't understand why people would close their eyes and venture out into other areas just because there isn't an obvious risk. Why would you use the least reliable method of understanding reality just because you don't see an immediate problem? I'm pretty sure that people have lost fingers and limbs in their lives by not realizing the potential risk of something. Yeah. Isn't it wiser to look at the potential risk? But it's also, you kept asking, why do you want to believe this? And I can appreciate that.
I think it's important.
But also, I'm not convinced that they do believe it. So there is the belief, I believe X, and then there is a belief about belief. I believe there's value in me believing X. And so you can believe the second one, which almost feels like you believe the first one, even if you don't believe the first one.
I think Sorry.
That belief in belief, coming from Dennett and everything else. I think people confuse that because it's not like Olivia believes there is an afterlife. Olivia just believes that believing an afterlife makes Olivia feel good. Well, congrats.
It's not even that it makes her feel good, I don't think. It's like trying to cover a hole in the wall with paint, right? It's not effectively working, but maybe it makes you feel good for a minute and you could just keep painting more. It's not covering the hole in the wall. Olivia's got some holes in her wall and she's trying to cover them in paint because she kept saying, out of her mouth, she kept saying, it's not that it makes her feel better if it is true. It's that she's afraid of dealing with what she needs to deal with if it isn't.
That's fair.
So that tells me, from a psychological perspective, that there are things she needs to deal with. Yeah. And instead of dealing with them, she's arguing that she shouldn't have to because it doesn't hurt her to just hold this belief she can't verify that allows her to avoid dealing with them. And I think that's bad for her and everybody else. And I don't like that epistemology. So that's my perspective. I agree with you, but that's why I was asking about the why, because what I was hearing in the conversation is there's something at the root of this that needs dealing with. And I would prefer that she have the opportunity to do that and just be a better version of herself. That'd be better for her. And ultimately, if everybody did that, it would be better for society. That's my 2 cents.
When you said covering a hole in a wall with paint, Arden in our chat said, or with tables and objects. which is an inside joke because there's a hole in the wall in her living room that I cut into the wall and I have not finished the project in, I don't know, 8 years or so. It's embarrassing. Let's go on and take some other calls. And we got a couple of theists here that I want to get to right away. But by the way, we really appreciate Olivia taking up that call and all the other theists who are calling in. All we're looking for is, can we get to some point of understanding? And if I don't understand why someone believes something, that's a point of curiosity. But if you're one of the theists who not only think that you have good reason to believe something, or but think that we have good reason to believe something as well, those are the calls that are going to go right to the top of the queue, because calling in to say, hey, I believe something, but I don't have a good reason, is potentially interesting in a let's have a therapy session and talk about, epistemology and blah, blah, blah. But when people are saying, hey, I believe this is actually a factual, this is true, and I believe this is something that you can verify as well, those are awesome. We've got John calling in from Ohio to answer Shannon's question. So, John, you're on with Shannon.
There's so many questions. Which one are you answering, John?
Hi. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
Good. Before I answer your questions, the point I wanted to make is there's people that love God, and if you love somebody, you want to spend eternity with them.
Okay, cool.
Can I pause for just a second? I need to pause for just a second. John, I'm going to mute you for just a second. Shannon hasn't been on for a little while. John has called 17 times and does not answer questions. So it's ironic that he's calling in to answer Shannon's question. Does not provide evidence. I don't know either. Does not answer questions. Does not provide argument or evidence. And has been repeatedly frustrating for me. So I'm thrilled that John is going to maybe not frustrate Shannon. So John, I'm going to unmute you. I guess it'd be, instead of, when you say you're calling in to answer Shannon's question, and Shannon asks what question, and you say you want to start by saying people love God and you want to spend eternity with someone you love, that is completely irrelevant and useless because it's not Shannon's question. It is not telling us which of Shannon's questions you're going to ask. It's not something that is necessarily true or relevant or demonstrates anything. So, John, let's set aside the kind of, I don't know, bullshit, preachy, irrelevant things. And we'll start by saying, Shannon asked this question. I'd like to answer it and see how that goes. So, John from Ohio is coming back on now.
I'm on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what that question is. What's my question, John?
What question did you have, Shannon?
What the fuck?
My God.
Is that a question? What the fuck is my question? It's fascinating. So you called to answer
No,
my
no.
question.
I already muted. I'm going to do us
Okay.
all a favor. John, you're not equipped for this. We've seen this over 17 calls. It just leads to frustration and hanging up on you or you running away. You cannot call in to say, I'm calling in to answer Shannon's question, and then ask Shannon what question she'd like answered. You're not the fucking Swami. You're not a fortune teller. This is not a game, and it's not a place for you to do your book report. I'm going to hang up on you now. And if you decide that I am, there are other callers.
I'll never get to experience John.
and you can thank me for that. John, when you decide that you would like to actually participate in a grown-up conversation where you do what you say you're going to do, like I want to answer Shannon's question, and then you don't go, okay, what question would you like me to answer? You had a question specific. When you decide that you want to act like a grown-up and have those conversations, give me call number 19 then. Bye.
That's funny. I'm going to answer Shannon's question.
I'm sure that there are people who are going to be disappointed, but there's going to be several people in chat that are going to donate $10 super chats right now just for me getting rid of John.
For not subjecting people to John. Okay. Fair enough.
It's absolutely wild. But all right, here we go. This is this individual's been on hold for a little while. This is Christ from New Mexico. Pronouns are he, him, saying the Bible is true, materialism is an improper cosmology. Hello, Christ. Why did you call previously under a different name?
John suffered a lot and there's a lot of things I'm still trying to make sense of. I'm glad you brought him up. Do you think he was tortured or something? He might have been crazy. But he worshipped me a lot, and he felt as though he was being tortured. At least that's
okay. I've muted you. I don't believe you, and I don't believe that you sat on hold for an hour and 28 minutes just to go down this. You've called previously as John, and now you're saying John used to worship me, and John might be crazy. I have zero interest in this. It's really sad that theist callers are calling in and doing this. You're either a prank caller or you're in need of some psychiatric help. But if you're going to call in as Christ and then talk about yourself under a different name and suggest that that person was crazy, I think as an ethical responsibility, it would be a mistake for us to engage with you. I
agree.
Because we might be propping up delusions. So thanks for calling, Christ, but do better. All right. Turns out this stuff's easy. I just completely debunked Christ right off the bat. Rainwood is a theist from New York. Pronounce him. God has written eternity in the hearts of all people. Wants to explain to the woman who. No, I'm sorry. Wants to explain to the woman. I'm sorry. Hang on. Wants to explain to the woman who was on why she believes in afterlife. I'm sorry, Rainwood. You don't get to talk to previous callers, but you can certainly talk to us. So, hi.
Oh,
Hi,
I liked it better when you were when you wanted to call and talk to the woman.
I just wanted to say that eternity has been written in the hearts of all men.
Okay.
What about women?
Well, the Bible says men and women falls in the same category.
Why do we care what the Bible says?
Well, the Bible is the Word of God, and my opinion.
Okay, I'm not interested in your opinion. I want to know things that are true. So, is there a way we can know that it's the Word of God?
There's the reason why I was addressing Shannon a little bit. I'm not talking to Shannon. I realize that. Is that you guys were saying this, telling her that she's a little delusional to believe in an afterlife.
No, Rainwood.
Delusional.
The question I just asked you was, how can we know that the Bible is the Word of God?
It has a lot of things in it that prove that there is a creator.
Okay, let's imagine just for half a second here that the Bible has things in it that prove there's a creator. Why would that show that it's the Word of God?
shows. Well, this is not really the path I wanted to go down, but it has a lot of prophecies in it. It has a lot of
If we
words of
assume for a
wisdom.
second that it has prophecies in it and that those prophecies came true, how does that demonstrate it's the word of God?
Well, it has a lot of wisdom in it too.
Okay.
Like for instance,
Rainwood, I'm going to keep doing this until we finally get somewhere. Rainwood, if we assume that the Bible has a lot of wisdom in it, how does that prove it's the word of God?
I guess you can't prove 1,000%.
No, sir. Please stop. Please don't do that. Nobody said anything about 1,000% or 100% or any percentage. I asked you to demonstrate the truth of your assertion, and you kept dodging into a new line of thought. And every single time I pushed back, trying to get you to demonstrate the truth of your assertion. And when you finally got back into the corner where you had to forced by reason and integrity to recognize and acknowledge that you don't have any way to demonstrate that it is in fact the word of God, you then went to, well, you can't know for 1,000% sure. I don't need you to hold up straw men of your own thing and burn it down. I just need you to be honest. So are we going to agree that we don't have reason to think that it is the word of God?
I'll agree that I can't prove it to you.
Awesome. So if I don't have reason to think it's the word of God, why should I care what it says?
Well, there was a question I wanted to ask. Can I ask a question?
I'm sorry. The question, we have to. I've already asked this question before. I started by asking, why should we care what the Bible says? And you said it is because of the word of God. Then we had a back and forth where you finally got to admit that you can't demonstrate it's the word of God. So now we're back to my original question, which was, why should we care what the Bible says?
I guess you don't have to.
Cool.
But there are certain things that are written in there that explain.
I don't care. I have read it. Okay. I have studied it. I used to believe it. I have taught it. I just posted an entire hour-long video that goes through the entire book of Ecclesiastes, start to finish. I've been studying the Bible since I was 5 years old. There's absolutely no reason for you to call in and tell me what the Bible says, because I already know and I don't care. Now, do you have something true to talk about?
Well, God answers my prayers.
What prayers does God answer, and how do you know God answered it?
Because I'm very specific, Matt, in my prayer. And then
we should be specific in the answer. What prayer did God answer, and how do you know he answered it?
Well, real quick, I own a dumpster company in New York. I have 250 dumpsters, and on every dumpster I have a different Bible scripture on the back of it, from Genesis all the way to Revelation.
I don't care.
And I know.
I need you to stop coming up with irrelevant distractions to show what a good.
I want to explain to you
No. I need you to stop coming up with irrelevant distractions and answer the question that was asked. What prayer did God answer, and how do you know he answered it?
So I asked God, should I stop witnessing to people that fall about the Bible scriptures on the dumpsters? Should I stop witnessing to them about why Jesus came to the earth, about what the kingdom will do when it finally gets here? Should I just live in the moment and just let everyone don't even witness anymore to anybody? Should I?
What was the answer? What was the answer, and how do you know it? What was the answer, and how do you know it came from God?
Well, I went to sleep that night. It was about 2-3 weeks ago, and I just asked God to please put into my mind something that, so I know whether or not I'm wasting my time witnessing to people about God and the scriptures and why.
And then what happened?
And why people grow old and get sick and die, and why.
How did he answer?
I'm gonna grow old and get sick and die before you get to the fucking answer to the question. What was God's answer to your prayer, and how do you know it was God? Anything other than that, and I'm dropping you.
It was anticipation. The word is anticipation.
So you asked God, hey, God, should I stop witnessing to people with scriptures on dumpsters? And then you went to bed and God sent you the word anticipation as an answer?
Yes.
So you
Okay.
thought of the
I'm
word
gonna-
anticipation.
I'm going to skip past the question that I still want answered, which is how the fuck do you know that came from God? I want to know, what did that word mean and how do you know?
It meant that we anticipate everything as human beings, and we should anticipate God's kingdom and everlasting life.
Why
That's a
didn't God say
lot.
that? Why didn't God say that instead of just the word anticipation?
Because he wants us to grow spiritually.
Okay, now you're just engaging in let me make shit up. How do you know that answer came from God?
I just know it. I just
Okay.
feel it in my soul, in my heart.
I just know that it didn't. I just know that it didn't. I just know it.
Yep. Shannon
I just
and
know
I
it.
are supremely confident that it did not come from God. Prove us wrong.
Well, you really can't prove anything to anybody.
Well, that's
I
not
just
true.
said that
That's
I
not
just
true.
know. I just know. If
Shannon.
it's acceptable for you to say I just know, and then that's an acceptable way to know things, then
Hey,
why can't I
Shannon.
do it?
Hey,
Yeah.
Shannon, I'm holding up 3 fingers behind my hand. You want me to prove it to you? Done. I just proved something to somebody live on the air, right after you said you can't really prove anything to anyone. I believe that you can't prove anything to anyone but Rainwood, but the rest of us are dealing in reality where evidence-based arguments are the sort of epistemology that leads to reliable understandings about reality. I'm sorry that you believe things that you can't demonstrate. You should maybe stop that.
And why is it okay for you? Like, do you not understand the hypocrisy of us asking for you to prove things and give evidence, and you say, "I just know"? Like, why isn't it acceptable for us to counter you with that then?
Well, do you
Right?
just know that there isn't a God?
Well, I
You
don't
just
have to
feel it,
say, I
right?
don't have to prove anything to you. I just know. I just know.
No,
That's an acceptable answer. No, I just know.
I could believe there is a God and still absolutely know that God didn't tell you that.
Yeah.
You have zero capacity to stay on topic with anything remotely relevant. It's really kind of frustrating because all we're trying to do is get you to say, hey, here's a good reason to believe what I believe. And then when we finally get down to it, you're just like, well, I don't really have a good reason. I just know it. Well, isn't that useless to us? How is that helpful to anybody? How is putting a verse on your dump truck helpful to anybody? And how is just telling us you just know? When I was a Christian, 1 Peter 3:15 requires Christians to be prepared at all times to give a reason for the faith that's within them. You familiar with that verse?
yes.
Why aren't you prepared to give a reason right now for the faith that's within you? I mean, it's not just any time. You specifically called into a show to do the thing that you are clearly not prepared to do. Why?
And if
Probably a
your
little
prayer was that you
anxiety.
should, I'm going to add a level to this, sorry to interrupt, is Rainwood, if your prayer was specifically to God to ask if you should still witness, maybe he should have done a better job of answering your prayers if you were going to call into a public platform by actually equipping you with the skill set and the answers to the questions that are being asked instead of the word anticipation, which you subsequently had to subjectively interpret on your own. Sounds to me like even that in and of itself is proof that God didn't answer your prayer because he didn't give you what you needed to be equipped to do the thing you were asking him if you should still do. That's a poor way to answer a prayer. And the Bible, as Matt just quoted, said that you need to be prepared. That was God telling you to be prepared. And when you asked him, his answer to you was not anything that would allow you to be equipped for that preparation that he's called you to do. So it doesn't sound to me like he answered your prayer.
There is something that I do agree with you guys on. I agree that when you die, that you're conscious of nothing at all.
You agree that when we die, what?
I didn't hear the last part.
That you're conscious of nothing. You just said about Ecclesiastes, Matt, And it says that a live dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they shall die, but as for the dead, they're conscious of nothing at all.
So you don't believe in an afterlife?
I do believe in an afterlife, but the one that Jesus promised. When Jesus walked the earth, he gave sight to the blind, hearing to the deaf, lame people walked, and
No, he didn't.
resurrected dead
No, he
people from
didn't.
the grave.
No, he didn't.
Well, you don't believe it.
There's no reason to believe it. You have no evidence that any of it happened. And also, you being the king of irrelevancies, it is irrelevant. Jesus could have walked the earth, healed the sick, cured the blind, and it wouldn't make any difference at all to whether or not your view of an afterlife is correct. What's the afterlife like?
Well, I believe that Jesus was giving a preview of what he would do when the kingdom arrived.
I'm sorry. The question is, what is the afterlife like? Because you've said you believe in the afterlife Jesus was advocating, but you also said the dead have no conscious awareness. Who is in heaven? In heaven, are people praising God?
I'm not going to heaven.
I didn't ask you if you're going to heaven.
No one's going.
Rainwood, did I ask you if you're going to heaven?
No, you said, what's the afterlife like?
Actually, I had asked another question since then, but you're about a good 30 seconds behind. So just go ahead and say whatever you want to say and we'll move on.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is that there's going to be a resurrection of those that are dead in the grave, 1,000-year reign of Christ on the new earth that God's going to renovate.
Okay.
And there'll be a new heaven and a new earth.
God's going to renovate. That's a fun concept.
Well, what he's going to do is remove
Why would God need
garden.
to renovate anything? God created everything and can create whatever he wants. Why
You're
doesn't he
the
just
weed,
start?
Rainwood. You are the weed, Rainwood. You are the weed. You are the weed in the garden. You are the poisonous thought that will not demonstrate the truth of anything that you say.
All the atheists will be gone.
Congratulations. I'm sure that you'll really be happy when your fictional fucking undemonstrable or non-demonstrable assertions about reality are proven to be right. Oh, wait, they won't be. And you'll never know.
So can you write down the date you'd like to die?
I don't need to write down a thing. I don't need to spend any time responding to you because you've already acknowledged that you cannot demonstrate the truth of any of this, which means you're just calling in to blather on about what you think is real with no demonstration that it is. Why should we care?
Yeah, and also recognize how nefarious the way that you're speaking to us is. Hey, one second. You just said, hey, 1 second.
You want to die.
1 second, Rainwood. You just said God's going to renovate you a planet and all you guys are going to be there, I don't know, partying, and we'll be gone anyway. All the atheists will be dead. So, yeah, take that, atheist. Do you understand the nefarious nature of speaking to somebody like that? Do you understand the nefarious nature of speaking to somebody like that? Like, what blinds your brain in a way that you're just like celebrating that we're all right and you're wrong and thus you'll just be dead and we'll be happy forever. So suck it. Like, yeah, think about that as though that's an argument, as though being an asshole is a positive argument for something. That, like, I just really have no respect for that. I don't have any respect for that. Aside from the rambling, I can deal with the rambling, but the Christian apologetic that you guys will just, you'll be happy forever and we'll either be tortured or obliterated and therefore suck it.
No one's getting tortured.
I said or obliterated. Are you listening to the words that I'm saying?
No one's getting tortured.
What else did I say? What did I say after tortured? I said tortured or demonstrate you're listening to me so that I can feel some iota of ability to have a conversation with you.
Here, John. Sorry, not John. Rainwood, Michael, whatever name you're going to use today. Because Michael has called 3 times before under a different name. Shannon said tortured or, and then used another word, and then repeated it at least once, if not 2 more times. I'm going to unmute you. When I unmute you, you need to tell us the word that Shannon said And whether or not you get to keep speaking is going to be contingent on whether or not we're satisfied that you paid any attention to what Shannon was saying. So when she said tortured or, what was the word that came after or?
I believe it was annihilated.
That's close enough. I'll take it. Obliterated is the word that she used. Annihilated is close enough for us to know that you were half paying attention. Now, what's the demonstration that anything you've said is true?
Oh, I asked the question, but no one ever answered me. Can you
What's
write
the
down
question?
a date, time that you would like to die? Can you do
No.
that physically?
No, I can't.
Why not? Why not?
I don't know what date or time I would like to die yet.
Yeah, neither do I.
Because you don't want to die. You don't
That's
want to
not-
die, just like Shannon didn't want to die.
Michael,
A dog.
Michael, I may not want to die now, but I also might want to die if I know additional things. So when you say, can I write down the date and time that I want to die? My answer is right now, I don't yet know when I want to die. Just like I don't know what time I'm going to want to eat tomorrow.
But when you're 98 years old, you still won't want to die. There's a special thing that's...
No,
That's not necessarily true.
No, sir.
I
No,
can
sir.
think of
That's
a lot
not
of reasons I
remotely
would want
fucking...
to.
That's not remotely fucking true. I sat there and played cards with my... Shut your mouth for a second and listen. I sat there and played cards with my 91-year-old grandma who was eager to fucking die. There are people all over I'm going to mute you because I know you're getting ready to fucking interrupt me. Just sit there and listen. There are people at all different ages in this life who are eager to die. I had a friend who had a terminal illness, who suffered with it for years and wound up taking his own life. And we all supported his decision because death with dignity is something that we should be striving for. How dare you come in here and pretend that you know God, you know the afterlife, you know all the, you just know. You don't have any fucking reason. You just fucking know. You don't know shit. And now you're going to start, you can't tell me when you want to die because you know you're always going to want to die. No, sir. You can't reason your way out of a wet paper sack. I can't tell you when I want to die because I don't yet know the answer to that. But there maybe I'll never want to die, but maybe I might want to die. And there are people who actively are begging to die right now, you fucking disgusting troll. And you're going to pretend nobody ever wants to die. I'm going to bring you back so you can apologize for lying.
I listened to everything you said, man. Eternity's written in the hearts of all men.
I'm sorry. I brought you back so you could fucking apologize. So do it. Here we try it again.
Anyone's feelings.
Apologize.
I apologize if I hurt anyone's feelings.
No. That's not an apology, you fuck. I'm hanging up on you. You don't do, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. You can't hurt my feelings. All you can do is embarrass yourself. All you can do is parade your ignorance around, your lack of concern for what's real, your inability to demonstrate the truth of any of your fucking delusions where you think you're part of the ones that are going to be okay and the rest of us are going to be annihilated or obliterated or nobody's going to get tortured and nobody wants to die. Well, you need to go learn about reality. Because there are people in hospitals and people in streets and people in caves and people in ditches and people in genocides in Gaza who would love to fucking die right now, but they can't. How dare you cheapen reality based on your, I just know it's true delusion. You lie about your name. You change it as it's convenient. You have nothing to offer anyone. And then you want to pretend, hey, you'll never want to die. I sat there with my grandmother. She wanted to die. And she's not the only person that I have met and interacted with in person who actively wanted to die. And by the way, whether or not you ever want to die is irrelevant to whether or not you're ever going to die. And your entire thing of could you write down the day and time that you'd like to die? That entire thing demonstrates the poison that religious teachers and your own confusion have allowed to seep into your brain, where when you are faced with the proposition of having to defend what you believe, blathering on and on and on, your objection, your argument is, hey, look, I can prove this real easy. When do you want to die? You don't want to die, do you? Because God has made it so that nobody wants to die. No, sir, that's also fucking fallacious. Even if nobody ever wanted to die, that wouldn't mean they didn't want to die because God put it in their heart that way. You are delusional, offensive dipshit. And someday, I hope you learn that there are people who want to die. And I hope it's not when you turn into one of them.
He also wasn't listening to the call he called in about, because I talked at length about how grappling with mortality made me a better version of myself, and I'm really glad that I did it. So I'm very comfortable with the inevitability of my death and aware of it and at peace with it, whether I do or do not want it to happen imminently or know when it will happen. So that's just a parlor trick. Like it's meant to imply that because you can't pick a date you want to live forever. I know I'm not going to live forever, but that still doesn't mean that I want to pick a date yet. But I can absolutely imagine a circumstance where I would want to be like, it has to be tomorrow. I am suffering inextricably. There will be no escape from it. I'm done. So
I want to die exactly 1 minute before I am forced to forever think the way he does. If that's ever
God,
the
God
eventuality,
willing, that's not a possibility.
Yeah.
Let's not wish that on ourselves.
Hey, by the way, let's get producer extraordinaire Arden in, whose birthday was yesterday.
Yeah.
Happy
Hello.
birthday.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you want to tell everybody what's going to happen after this show goes off, who's on the Sunday show after dark, and all that stuff to the best of your ability.
Yeah, so if you guys stick around and chat after the show ends, it's automatically going to send you over to Calling It Now over on the Jimmy Snow and the Line channel, where that'll be Jimmy and Javon Bradley. And then after that, it'll be the After Dark show with Jimmy and Paula Gia. And then we do have shows lined up for the rest of this week now. Tomorrow on Skeptalk is going to be Aaron Adair with Susan Gerbic. Then Chewed Gum will be Alyssa Lube and Taylor, Skeptical Heretic. Justin from the Deconstruction Zone will join Matt on the Hang Up on Wednesday. And then it'll be Ben and Luxander on TACIS this Thursday. And then next week, you guys, you get Shannon 2 weeks in a row. Lucky you. Shannon's going to be back with Justin for next week's early Sunday show. So that's what you got. Go ahead and hit the little notification bell and all those things so you don't miss those shows, and stick around.
Hit like, hit subscribe, go to linemerch.com, go to patreon.com/calltheline, do all the things you need to do to support this. And let me give you the best reason for all of you watching right now to hit like and subscribe and to comment on this video. If you think anything at all has been said here, either by us or by the callers, that other people would benefit from, the best thing you can do to make sure other people get to see it is to hit like, hit subscribe, share this information with others, because that's how you control YouTube's algorithm to make sure content like this ends up in front of more eyes than it would be if you hadn't done that. It is good for all of us. It is essential because the more people who know about this, the more likely we are to get callers who are more adept at arguing their case and answering questions and paying attention and not just asserting things and not just talking out of their ass and saying that. The more people see this, the more likely it is we'll get somebody who can actually defend this, which means you get better callers, better information, and we all get closer to the truth. If there is a God out there, and that's the path. Getting people who know this and can demonstrate it to actually participate. Because I tell you this, if the quality of callers never rises above Michael, the only thing that's going to happen is all of us are going to become even more supremely confident that religion is the product of broken brains, broken hearts, broken epistemology, and a frustration with not being comfortable in reality and not at all true, which is fine if that's the case. But if we're wrong, that needs to change. And in either case, the truth needs an audience.
Yeah, and I need a
right
maximal
now-
data. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good.
I just really, I'm not on opt-in, and I want to talk to a maximal data undesigned coincidence apologist so bad because like I'm actively like, this isn't a joke. I really want to talk because right now your representation, as far as I'm concerned, is Paul. Every time I'm watching these videos, because he's so much more familiar with your camp, is I go to Paul and I go, do they believe this? Because that would follow from this thing. So right now, Paulogia is your proxy, as far as I'm concerned. He's representing your camp. So call me next week. I'm not here often. Please go find me one, because I have so many fucking questions about it, because it doesn't make any sense to me. And it seems like a retreat area. If you're trying to be intellectually honest, you have to eventually retreat into, well, if you just look at all of these coincidences stacked on top of each other and call that good evidence, then obviously it's true. Anyway, please, I'm begging you to follow Matt's. Go find me some on-design coincidence, maximal data apologists from the Lydia McGrew camp. I want to talk to them really bad, and I'm not going to have an opportunity again for a long time. That's it. That's my pitch. Sorry to
Paul,
Justin Future.
You can't say that's it and let me start talking and then jump in with another thing. Paul, him from South Carolina, is an atheist who wants to talk a little bit about secular humanism. Hey, Paul, what's going on? You're on with Shannon and Matt.
Hey, Shannon. Hey, Matt. How are you going?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Sorry, I'm not going to be the apologist that you want, Shannon. Unfortunately,
I'll allow it.
But I do want to talk about. About secular humanism.
Sure.
This kind of stems from conversations I've had with a friend who, for all intents and purposes, is a humanist, has very liberal viewpoints, socially liberal viewpoints, but she sticks to the Catholic Church. And I've had many conversations with her about religion, and she's very open to hearing my criticisms of religion and Christianity.
Cool.
But it seems like there's something missing that's keeping her from coming over to the other side, and it's also keeping her from examining her beliefs, I believe. And so I'm trying to figure out what is the delta between.
The delta is that secular humanism doesn't lie to make people feel good.
But I don't think that's why she sticks with Catholicism.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I don't think she doesn't hold to the promise of an afterlife and things like that. I think it's more of a cultural thing. Her mother is Catholic.
Awesome.
Her children are baptized. Her husband is probably Catholic.
Yeah. So secular humanism won't lie to her and tell her that other people agree just to make her comfortable.
Yeah. So what's the strategy then to convince her that the fact that Christianity is unfalsifiable or has not been proven? How do I use that as justification to say, well, you should be secular then? Because it would mean giving up a lot of things that she has today with community, with her family, and having to find a new thing and rebuild that.
Why are you actively targeting this person for deconversion? I'm confused. Why are you actively targeting this one individual for deconstruction?
I think mainly because she's willing to listen to me. I've had these conversations with a lot of believers.
Why are you actively targeting anybody for deconstruction on an individual level?
Not really. I like to talk about this, and I like to. Obviously, you two of you are in the same camp. You like to have these discussions, and I think it's probably the same motivations that you have. I want her to believe true things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't call my friend's house I don't call my friend's house to try to deconvert them, though. So I
But
don't know if it's the same thing.
yeah, I'm thinking back to the conversation that you had with Olivia, and there was a lot of discussion about people should believe things that are true, not
I
believe
believe
things that
that.
are false.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it seems to
But
me it
you
would
just
follow that you would extend that to your
you
friends as
just
well.
you just asked. You think that she doesn't believe in a God, and what reason would she have to be secular? Congrats, she is secular. It's not a reason thing. You are either convinced that supernatural claims are true, or you are not convinced that supernatural claims are true. You seem to be asking about how do I get her to admit that because she doesn't believe she's secular? Define the fucking term.
Yeah, I just have an
Okay,
open
so she
conversation with her about
supports
it.
the Catholic Church. So I think that would probably be the
Okay.
biggest thing.
Now we're talking about something else. There's one thing about,
Okay.
hey, is this true? And then there's, are you going to support this particular religion, whether you're convinced it's true or not? Why would she support a religion she doesn't think is true? And is she aware of all the absolutely awful things that the Catholic Church and other churches have done? What is it about it that deserves her support? Her family likes it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I've had that discussion with her too. She's also, I think she has the feeling that a lot of those things have been worked out. And she asked the question, like,
A lot of those things been
how
worked
long do
out.
you, yeah.
Like what? Does she think that the Catholic Church has made reparations and has stopped shuffling child raping priests around from one thing to another? Because that's not true. And I don't know how you make reparations for it. And by the way, if the Catholic Church's story isn't true, and even if their story is true, it wouldn't make any difference because the church is a criminal organization.
Yeah. So I agree with that. I think that's probably part of my motivation for wanting to talk her out of supporting the Catholic Church. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the things that she finds valuable in religion, the community aspect, and maybe some other things that we haven't discussed.
I'd go find research on what they use their money on. Like, if she cares about people, I would, and she's giving them money, and you want that to stop, and arguably I think that's laudable, like not supporting that church. I would go do research to show what they're spending money on, show the priests that they moved around after they were credibly accused of, sexual misconduct, sexual assault, and pedophilia. Show that they're spending your money on that. Just Google residential schools, Canada. Show her any article there. Like, there's lots of ways to demonstrate that supporting that organization is contributing monetarily to having a negative impact on the world in a very tangible way. So if that's the problem that you want to solve, that's the tack that I would take for that. Is, if I had a close friend who I saw contributing money to an organization that I perceive as evil, I would demonstrate why I think it's evil to them in the hopes that that would convince them the same way that it convinced me, and that the reason they're doing it is because they're unaware or they need the evidence presented to them.
Yeah, and I guess at the end of the day, she's going to weigh that against, well, that might mean having a rift between me and my mother, who I'm really close with, or me and my husband, who I'm really close with.
Yeah, well, why does her husband and her mother need to? Well, I mean, the husband, I guess, if you're sharing funds, then I would, say, let's talk to him too and show him what this money's going towards, because you can still perceive yourself culturally as Catholic, I guess, be sort of secular in your demeanor and not give them money.
I wonder if there's this type of pragmatism, because I could keep pulling on this thread, and it becomes more and more complex a discussion for her.
Mm-hmm.
But it almost points to maybe some of the practicality of secularism that isn't present in evangelical, because evangelical Christianity will say whatever it takes. If you have to leave your husband, leave your family, whatever. And at some point on the secular side, you draw the line and say, well, it's actually not worth keeping on pulling that thread. If she has the values of secularism, she's given to the church, but she has to give up too much. Like, how much do you really pull on that thread, I guess, to try to convince someone to leave that behind?
I'm so confused. Let's imagine that we go back in time before we had a robust, evidence-based theory of evolution by means of natural selection. How would you convince someone not to believe creationism if that didn't exist? Wouldn't it be talking about how creationism hasn't met its burden of proof and that it needs to meet its burden of proof before you accept it? Yes. So whether or not they stay with Christianity or Catholicism is not in any way impacted by whether or not secular humanism exists, whether or not secular humanism is correct, whether or not secular humanism is good. None of that is fucking relevant. The only thing that is relevant is do you care whether it's true or not? And if the answer is no, then we have to have a completely different conversation, because if we don't care about whether or not it's true, we have to come up with a whole new way to discuss it. But if it's not true, it doesn't matter if there's a better alternative.
So would you say that, I guess now my question is, where do you draw the line on truth? Like, would truth be enough? It was for me.
I don't draw a line on truth. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't draw a line on truth.
Yeah, I don't understand that statement. Yeah. It's like, this is truthy enough, not this though. I don't know what that statement means.
I guess what I'm saying is, what do you give up for the truth? Like to say that now you are
everything,
only believing true things, where you're doing everything. Okay. I mean, I gave up a lot too. I called him before and thought, I was Christian for 20 years and gave all that up and had risks with family and friends, and was worth it for me.
I don't think I gave up anything. I feel like I traded false things for real things. I think I gained. I gave up false things for real things. I don't see that as giving it.
It's probably a slight exaggeration to say you give up everything for the truth, because I agree with Shannon. I'm not convinced that anybody's really given up any. You know what you give up for the truth? Lies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I gave up believing.
It's certainly a trade-off. Yeah, you could.
Oh no.
There could be a relationship that. Yeah. There's a trade-off. I mean, you give something up, but what you gain may be better. In in you weigh the two together,
I gave up
the
comfort.
thing that you gain is better.
I gave up comfort, but I gave up comforting delusions.
Sure. But the thing,
and I've given up no people.
Potential relationships that weren't necessarily always about religion, but once that goes away, that relationship becomes
contingent upon them.
Then breaks.
If you not believing that religion anymore and being honest with yourself out loud, then that means that relationship was contingent on something that isn't you, which means that relationship isn't about the two of you. Which means, like, I gave up pretty much no relationships. Some of them became complex for a minute and there needed to be some boundary setting done, but I gave up. Like, nobody in my life ran away from me. My partner had most of the people in his life. There's more complexities to those relationships now, and they're more work because people believe different things. But if somebody just says, that's it, we don't believe the same things, off you go, then I would argue that that's probably a relationship that's not healthy anyway. And maybe, you'll be better on the other side of it because you'll find somebody who aligns with the paradigm of reality that you now operate within.
Yeah, I think that goes well for friends. Families are a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I agree. It is difficult, but you either believe things or you don't. It's whether or not what you're talking about now is whether or not you're going to be honest about it out loud and what the impacts of that are. Yeah. Because no one comes to a belief based on how it impacts their relationships. That's not the way beliefs are formed. Like, you are convinced it's true or you're not. That's how forming beliefs works. So
yeah, I think I might have gotten really. I think I'm a little confused, Paul, because Shannon hit on something early that didn't enter my mind, which is, the why are you trying to change this person? And I'm happy to just take you at your word that, hey, there's somebody I care about. We have good conversations. They seem to be agreeable, but they're not quite getting all the way there. I doubt you're constantly messaging this person and, hey, I'm still trying to convince you. I mean, you're doing that. You're just trying to figure out, how do I get better at convincing my friend to value the truth? And the truth is, I'm not convinced that Shannon and I have any sort of answer, because we don't know your friend. And what their motivations are, or what's going to change them. But the questions that you've asked, and don't get me wrong, you're doing extraordinarily better than the overwhelming majority of people who are probably engaged in this. But the questions you're asking all seem to have some flawed premise in it. It's like, oh, how do I get them to stop supporting Christianity by selling them secular humanism? Nope. Even if there is no secular humanism, you can point out that they shouldn't be Christian, just like you could point out that they shouldn't be Muslim, they shouldn't be Scientologist. You can point out what's wrong with something, that it is not an evidence-based view, and that it is, in fact, a corrupt, whether it's true or not, and has loads of issues or whatever else, completely separate of whether or not there's another option. But secular humanism has the advantage of already saying, you know what secular humanism is missing? It is missing the privileged status in the world that religions generally have. Religions begin with this default status where, hey, we can just say, we're your community. You're going to donate to us. It's part of this. We're going to be respected by the government. We're going to get special status from the government. We're get tax-free status. We can do all of these things. And then when you move from Boston to Chicago to LA to Austin, Texas, in each one of those things, there's going to be a little community already set up. Matter of fact, there's probably going to be about 20 or 30 Baptist churches, Pentecostal churches, Presbyterian churches, and that's just within Protestantism. There's going to be Catholic churches all over the place, and there's a dozen Catholic churches within 20 miles of me right now. And so if your friend moves to Austin, they've got built-in communities. There are not a dozen built-in secular humanist communities in Austin. There's probably not a dozen built-in secular humanist communities in the entire United States. And that's because religions have had a privileged status that allowed them to grow, avoid responsibility, and be viewed by society as a good thing and a true thing when they're not necessarily either one of those. And so what needs to happen is not you having a conversation with your friend. We need to work together after we fix all the other shit that's wrong in the world that's preventing us from being able to do it, like the fascists and the Christian nationalists. We need to start making sure that we're building actual communities, so there are landing places for people who want to, or who are trying to leave some sort of religious community, or who have been ostracized from a religious community, even if they didn't want to, and they just don't have any place else to turn. We're doing some of that. There are a number of organizations, Sunday Assembly, and other things. There's Recovering from Religion, and there's meetup groups and all this. We're nowhere near there yet. And so if there's someone who's struggling with Catholicism, I don't think I would be trying to sell them on something better. I don't need to replace religion with a different religion, be it secular or not. My friend Dennis Loubet, when we were doing nonprofits, was asked by someone, when you replace, when you get rid of religion, what do you replace it with? And his answer was, when you cure cancer, what do you replace it with?
Yeah, Matt, you nailed it, and this is exactly what my original premise was. We got wrapped up around this particular anecdote I have. My original question was, what is it that secular humanism doesn't have that Christianity has? You mentioned a lot of built-in communities, the franchise. You can move from one place to another, and you're automatically accepted. And so, I was kind of trying to identify those things. You mentioned, like, once you don't have cancer, what do you replace it with? It depends on what kind of cancer you have, I guess. I mean, if you are missing half your face.
With anything, curing cancer is the reward. Health,
sure, but if it leaves a gaping hole, you need to replace it with something. You could be open to infection or whatever. If you have to remove skin, you replace that with.
No, you didn't mean cure cancer in an individual. He meant cure cancer unilaterally.
Oh,
That's the
sure.
it wasn't like
Yeah, I'm
Steve
thinking more
has
of the
cancer and we
individual,
cut
like in
out
this
his cancer, now
individual.
he's cured. It was, there is no cancer anywhere in the universe anymore. It has been cured. No one can get cancer anymore, is what he's saying.
But even
I think
within
that's
Yeah, I
Steve,
agree with that. Yeah.
but even within Steve, if Steve has cancer and you remove it, you don't replace it with anything because the cancer wasn't part of Steve to begin with. You can say, well, technically you'd have to put some sutures in, and you have missed the fucking point of the analogy if you're looking at it from the standpoint of we got to sew this person up.
Yeah.
And avoiding infection isn't replacing it with something. If you allowed infection, you would be replacing cancer with an infection and then causing another problem. You just get rid of the fucking cancer, and you don't replace it with non-infection.
Yeah, I think the analogy I would go with is quitting smoking. Like you could quit smoking cold turkey, or you could quit smoking by replacing it with a patch or nicotine gum. If one thing's going to work for one person, it's not going to work for another. And so I was able to quit cold turkey. I wonder about the people who need the nicotine gum or the patch, or maybe even just to be able to twiddle a pencil so they have something to do with their hands. I feel like there are people out there like that that are still in a religion because there's not that alternative. And I think you mentioned a lot of reasons why secular humanism or something else isn't.
I'm not
Are you just talking about community? Are you just talking about community? Is that what this is all about?
I think that's probably one of them. I was trying to identify maybe other things too. Community is one thing I could think of, and my question was like, what are some other things possibly that are missing? But
when you leave religion, there's communities all over the place. I think that we need to change our orientation, because we're constantly like, well, when you don't go to church anymore, what's your community? As though they've got the market cornered on any and all forms of community. Like, find something that you share an interest in and, join a club or an association or a sports team. Those are all also communities, definitionally, in the same manner. Like, pursue your own interests and find people who share those interests, and you'll have a robust community in that regard. And I don't know what else would be missing. Churches are inarguably very good at forming communities just because, like Matt said, they've had this privileged position where they're seen as the default. Like, it's just, we take it for granted that their way of perceiving and understanding the world and their organization is what should be gathered around, and thus it happens organically because that's the way it's been for so much of our history. But that doesn't mean that it's good. It certainly doesn't mean that it's true, and it doesn't mean that that's the only alternative to get that type of satisfaction. And that arguably, I think other communities don't have the same sorts of strings attached to them as well, because you're there because you want to be, not because you fear not being there.
Religion doesn't provide anything essential or true that isn't already available to non-religious. So when you change the analogy to be like, oh, people smoke and some people can quit cold turkey, but some people might need a patch. Well, maybe they need a patch. I guarantee you they could absolutely quit cold turkey. You put them on a fucking island where there's no cigarettes, all of a sudden they're done smoking. Doesn't mean it's pleasant, doesn't mean it's easy. The nicotine patches and things like that, that is to ease away from an actual addiction. But you're talking about the fidget things, the fumes, whatever. You can use those even if you've never smoked. You're not replacing the nicotine with a fidget. You're just allowing them to continue fidgeting. They're just no longer doing it with something that's as deadly as what they were fidgeting with before. You haven't replaced the fidget. You've replaced the deadly part of the fidget. So once again, when you get rid of religion, that's the deadly part of the fidget. The things that people get from religion aren't the deadly parts. They're not the problem. You don't, to the extent we need community, religions poison that. They co-opt community and pretend like they're the only ones that can provide it. Oh, you want to not be uncomfortable about what might happen in afterlife? Religion will pretend to give you an answer. Religion pretends to poison you so it can give you the homeopathic remedy. When you get rid of the pretend poison and the homeopathic remedy, you're back to the baseline where everybody is. And once again, when you get rid of religion, you don't replace it with anything.
Yeah,
It's
totally
its own
agree.
reward.
You can have the fidget without the deadly. I'm losing the chat.
I got
It
a
looks
fume
like I don't want
downstairs.
to
I
hold
haven't
you.
smoked in a decade. Yep. We got to move on to some other calls real quick, but I appreciate it, Paul.
Yeah.
Hopefully that helped.
All right.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the help.
No problem.
I got I used to smoke. I smoked for ages and ages and ages. I quit a couple of times and, went back and I always just quit cold turkey. But a couple of years ago, I got one of those little fume things, mainly because I am on occasion a marketing major's wet dream, and I will just buy something because I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's like. And so I saw people advertising these things, and I got one. I found it yesterday, which is what reminded me of it. And despite the fact that I haven't touched it in a year, it's still got flavor. It's kind of pleasant. It's almost like putting a breath mint in front of your mouth and just going, and then not having to eat the mint or any of that stuff. And I was like, okay, that's cool. There's a reason we have fidget spinners. There's a reason we scroll endlessly. Our brains need information. They need to be occupied. I don't know why I'm talking about this. Shannon should be talking about this. But the notion that because something co-ops the way your brain works and what your brain needs means that thing is essential is absolutely false. There are plenty of other things that might fill that need. And that's why people are like, oh, when I replace this bad thing, when I get rid of this bad thing, what do I fill the need with? No. The bad thing was destroying. It's not like you needed something there. You needed the fidgeting. You needed the information. What do you replace the religion with? How about a better book than the Bible? How about a science book? Any number of things. Because what you're trying to do is give yourself answers, give yourself comfort, and you replace that with the actual answers and community.
Yeah. I've often used the analogy in the past where while I was religious, it was like I was trying to swim across a pool holding rocks. And then one day I realized, oh, I could just let these go. Right?
Yeah.
It would be easier. You mean I can just drop these? I don't have to try to carry these with me while I'm, swimming through life. I could just let it go. And
I would sing it, but Disney would sue us. I would sing it, but I do it so well, Disney would sue us.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing you sing. We'll get it out of you.
That's probably not gonna
Let's go do karaoke, Matt.
We have, so Chanda's calling from Texas, Brennan Shear. Chanda's an atheist who went from Christian atheist really quickly and would like to talk about the afterlife and ghosts. And so I don't know if we're going to get another call. So Chanda, you might be the final caller for today. We'll see. But you have called on the exact right day to get Shannon Q's thoughts and possibly mine on the afterlife and ghosts. So welcome, Chanda.
Hi. I hope this is a short conversation. I'm not calling to argue or anything. I just started watching you like a week ago, so I'm very interested, and I just love I love this. So I love what you do.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So yes, it was a quick change. I won't go into full detail of why I became a Christian when I did. Well, obviously something bad happened, and I hadn't no one else to turn to, so I turned to this thing called God. And I think it's complete bullshit after about not even a month of being in the religion. And I laugh about it now because I'm just like, what the heck? Anyway, I started doing some research. I'm not saying but as in but I might be, because that's ludicrous. I'm curious why I have seen, I guess, ghosts, and I have had spirits come to me. I'm relatives that have passed away, relatives I've never met in my entire life. My mother's father, when he died when she was 14, I was not even birthed until she was 27. So and he's come to me and has given me full details of like the swing set that he used to take her to, the color of it, things that I never knew prior to. I have no pictures of it. My mom never told me those things. And not just that, my uncle who passed away, he came to me. My friend who passed away from cancer not long ago came to me. reassuring type things, nothing demonic or anything like that. And I hate using that word because all I've been told was they're demons coming to me, and I believe that that's not true because I don't believe that God exists. So what am I saying is that atheist? So like I said, I'm new to it too. I have questions about the whole ghost.
Okay. So who in my life has passed away, and are they talking to you?
Yes.
They approached you? People in my life?
Well, I have seen them in my dreams. They approached me and talked to me in my dreams.
For clarity, I think there's been a miscommunication. Shannon is asking if people from Shannon's life are coming to talk to you.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Right.
How do you know?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
So every time this has occurred to you, it's been people you know, right?
No, not all of them. Not all of them. I moved into a place, I didn't even live there 2 weeks, and they were keeping me from being there, and they presented themselves a few times.
What does that mean, presented?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Oh, man. I'm so... Handprints. No one lived in that place. Handprints looking in. They locked me out of my room. I found a key on top of the thing. A softball was in between a friend and I. We were talking, and it just started rolling out of nowhere. He didn't move. We weren't moving. We were just talking. It was sitting right between a softball.
So you had a locked door. A ball started rolling. How did you determine that any of these were in fact spirits or ghosts at all, let alone who they were?
I don't know who moved the ball. It just moved.
Okay, if you don't know who moved the ball, how do you know it's a who?
It.
How did you eliminate that it wasn't a draft? That it wasn't a draft, or there wasn't a slight shift in the balance of the floor? A change in temperature didn't change the grade. Maybe there was a slight change in temperature that changed the grade of the floor, and that coincided with draft.
Okay, so that was my question. So it's not. It's just me being crazy. Like it has nothing to do with actual.
Wow. None of us said anything at all about you being crazy. You called in to say
I know
that
you're not. Yes.
Please listen, please. You called in to ask us about ghosts that you're experiencing. And all we did was ask you, how do you know that what you're experiencing is ghosts? And your answer was, I guess I don't. And then we're like, yeah, and then you act like, I guess I'm just crazy. No, if you experienced something, I believe that you experienced something. I am not convinced that your conclusion about what you experienced is accurate. And that's why we're asking, how can we tell?
I understand.
How can you? Well, then I guess I'll stop talking.
I didn't give you I understand. No, I understand. I didn't give you, that definitely could have been a draft. Now you say that. The last poll that I had with that house that I was living in with, I was standing outside with a friend of mine who was helping me move out. And I look up, and by the tree, I see like this shadow figure. And it just starts walking. It's a shadow figure, clearly a human shadow figure.
Clearly?
No bones, no, what?
You said clearly as though obviously it was, but there's all manner of perceptual illusions that could have been
smoke, it could have been this, but I clearly saw a man walking, but it was not a man. It was a black figure. And then out of nowhere, it just, within 3 or 4 steps, it just withered away. It
sounds like when you have any sort of misperception, or there's a coincidence of some sort, that you've primed yourself to interpret all that as affirmation that there's some sort of apparition that's attempting to communicate with you via just mundane run-of-the-mill things that happen, and the accumulation of those mundane run-of-the-mill things and your interpretation of them. And let's be clear that it's just your interpretation of the reasons behind them and speculation about the reasons behind them has thus further convinced you that it's all a mountain of evidence as opposed to just a series of benign, mundane things that happen.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Okay. So
How do you
there's
tell the
no,
difference?
I'm just saying in atheism, there's no ghosts or like
No,
spirits or things like that.
no, Chanda. Nobody's talking about atheism. Nobody said shit about atheism. It's entirely possible for somebody to be an atheist and believe in ghosts. Atheism is about
Okay,
whether or not
thank
you're
you.
convinced. Okay. Atheism is about whether or not you're convinced that a God exists. However, I'm not
Right.
convinced that it's possible for somebody to be a rational skeptic and believe in ghosts because I have been presented with no evidence of anything supernatural being real or even plausible or possible. Gods, ghosts, any of that. And so you're having experiences. Here's a locked door. Here's a ball that moved. And for some reason, you keep concluding that this is some spirit, some supernatural agent, and they're trying to lock you in or they're trying to do something to you. And all we're asking is, what is the justification for reaching that conclusion rather than saying, that was weird, I don't know what it was?
I guess I should further explain. So when I was in high school, I knew a guy who was atheist. And at the time, I grew up one of those, oh gosh, I don't know, holiday believers where my mom didn't really take us to church, only on the holidays. So I was never like strong Christian or anything like that. I never really even cared. Up until, like I said, like about a month or two ago, when I was just like, hey, well, maybe, but no, there's not. And so it went from that to that. But in high school, I knew a guy, atheist. He told me, because I told him about one of my ghost stories that I experienced, and he said, I'm atheist. We don't believe in ghosts because God makes ghosts, or something of that sort. It was all the way in high school.
Okay, Chanda.
So it stuck with me.
Chanda, ignore everything you've heard from everybody in the world, for the entirety of the world, about atheists or atheism, because none of it's fucking relevant. What I'm asking is, you've had an experience. You reach the conclusion that the most probable explanation is that there is a spirit trying to communicate with you or hinder you or something. What's the justification for saying that's the most probable explanation?
Found out at that house. Okay, so that all those things happened at that one house. Apparently, the woman before me, she had a mirror at the front door to keep spirits from coming inside because she was Catholic. I think that's something they do, apparently.
Oh my God.
So I researched it at the house that I was living at. It was right off the railroad tracks in center of Houston, one of the more historical areas. Apparently, and I knew the home, like the owner of the home in front of this. It was like a duplex. I was living in the back where it happened on the downstairs. So I did some more research, and he told me that the woman who lived there with her husband at the time went off to work, and he never came back. And she just kept waiting and waiting and waiting for him to come back. So he gave me the story and looked up the research of the people that lived there online, because you can find everything there. And it was a woman with a man who did, yes, he went off to war and never came back home because he passed.
Shonda.
And let me 1 second. So what you're telling me is that you purchased a house that was old, and that at some point in time, somebody who lived in that house died? What an anomaly! What? I bet that never happens.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I bet no one ever dies that lives in a house. That's crazy shit. That asks you for evidence as to why you know, and you were like, you're never going to believe this. But on the internet, it told me that someone who lived in that house died, and their wife was sad about it. Therefore, that ball moved because of ghosts. That's bananas.
So if you know, so hang on. If you know, then let's get back to my question. You had an experience. What is the justification for determining that a spirit is the most plausible explanation for that experience?
Because that's what I'm used to thinking and knowing. I don't know how to
Is
answer
what you're used to thinking in any way a reliable barometer of what the plausible correct answer is?
Can you tell me what the plausible correct answer is? Because, like I said, I've seen things happen since I was a small kid. And this,
Shonda, does the fact that all you basically said it when I said, what's the demonstration that spirits are a plausible answer? And you basically said, because that's what I always come up with. And I said, just because you always come up with it, does that mean that it is plausible as a correct answer? And now you asked me to tell you what the correct answer is. How would we find out what is the most plausible explanation for a ball moving?
a draft.
No. Shonda, please. I didn't ask you what is the most plausible explanation. I said, how would we find out what the most plausible explanation was?
I'm not sure unless I hired someone to come check out my air ducts or it's a story, it's a story to be told and anyone can make it up, but it actually happened to me and there's no way for me to explain to you.
I give up.
That it actually happened.
Sean, let me try one super quick.
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm not. You guys are very intelligent. You use such big words, and I was like, oh gosh, how am I going to speak to you? I just don't.
I think what Matt's trying to drill at is, what your epistemology is like. What system do you use to determine for yourself if something is or isn't true? Right? Like how do you know things? And it sounds to me like for a very long time, because you mentioned in high school, you've been interpreting mundane things as, apparitions of some kind and accumulating a body of evidence in your mind based on that narrative arc and you buying into its efficacy, you buying into, when something anomalous happens, no matter how mundane, that fits into this narrative arc that you're in touch with the spirit realm or whatever. Instead of you perceiving mundane things as operating within the realm of, material reality, things that we can know things about, things that can be true, you're defaulting towards this narrative that you have in your head. So when you perceive something happening, how do you know that it's not just a mundane thing versus the spirit world speaking to you? Do you do any deliberations in your head, or do you instead just default? No, you default to the story, right? You just default to the story that you've accumulated a lifetime of evidence in building by looking at every mundane thing and labeling it evidence to prove the case you've been making to yourself about you being in touch with the spirit world.
Yeah.
When a mundane thing happens, maybe look at it more so as a mundane thing that happens and try to figure out what an explanation might be for it that doesn't just default to it being another component of the story that you seem interested in building or want to be real or whatever, like, so that you can work on constructing a better epistemology that'll lead you towards perceiving the world through a lens of reality that's more beneficial to you making appropriate and accurate decisions that are founded on the principles that we can know about the tangible world around us and orient yourself that way instead. If that's something you're interested in, I would recommend it. I give it a 10 out of 10 as opposed to defaulting.
I just usually, let it happen. I don't like need any stage or anything like that. I just let it happen, and but let's thank God I'm in a place right now. I hate saying thank God. It's just something you say, but I'm in a place right now where there's nothing. So we're good. So it hasn't happened in a while, which is great. But I don't mind if it does. It's just one of those weird things that happen sometimes.
I don't think it's a weird thing that happens. I think that you perceive it as a weird thing that happens, is what I'm trying to get across to you.
But yes, because people think it's weird. And that's why I was mainly calling, was because people think it's weird and people think that it's, and unfortunately there's so many people that are so brainwashed into Christianity that they're just like, oh, it's demons, or,
it's nothing. You've created this story. You've created this story, and you are the one that is passing this story on. You've created this story in this narrative of your life, and then you tell other people through your lens what these things mean. It's entirely based on your interpretation of it. And then you're like, well, they find it weird. But it's all your speculation and interpretation that you're giving them, right?
Yeah.
And then they're speculating and interpreting. Yeah. Well, this is what you need to look at, Shanta. This is what I'm trying to get you to. And then you're like, you know what though? They think it's demons, and I know that's wrong. Okay, how do you know that's wrong? And why aren't you applying that to the narratives you're building in your own mind? Why aren't you consistent in your deliberations, in the way that you're consistent in judging that their deliberations of the same data set are inaccurate?
Goodness, yeah. If I could go on with that, I would. I know you guys don't have enough time for that, but I got kicked out of Bible study whenever I was a Christian.
That has nothing to do with what I said, Matt.
No.
I don't want to fight them. I don't want to fight them. It's not.
Earlier,
I was asking you to analyze yourself. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
Earlier, you mentioned that one of these spirits came to you and described a swing set that you had no knowledge of, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing at all like a ball rolling. You're claiming that you heard in a dream. Okay. Then why did you describe it? If it's a dream, why did you decide to describe it as a dead relative telling you about a swing set you knew nothing about, rather than just a dream?
Because it was a dead relative in the dream.
Okay. How do you tell? Here's the thing. When you have a dream about a dead relative, it's possible that it's just a dream. It's just your brain doing something, putting together pieces of stuff that may be true or not true, and maybe stuff you've forgotten, maybe you didn't know, and maybe you just don't know why. Then, I don't know that it's possible, but you believe it's also possible that maybe that is in fact a dead relative coming to communicate you in a dream. You think that that's a possibility. Let's assume both of those two are possible. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to go ahead and assume with you for a minute that both of those two are possible. When you have that dream, how do you tell whether it was just a dream or whether it was a dead relative?
Good question.
That's the question I asked 10 minutes ago.
Just if you don't know, a picture of him, and then I went to my mom after the dream.
If you don't know, then why would you reach a conclusion? If you don't know, then the right answer is not to say, I think I heard from a ghost. The right answer is to say, I don't know what that was.
It was him. I seen pictures of him, and then I asked my mom about her swing set that she lived across the street from, apparently. And she was like, how do you know? How do you know the color? Like, how do you know this? I was like, because your dad spoke to me last night. Like,
yeah, you're literally right in front of the pool of knowledge, refusing to drink.
Yeah. You recognize other faulty
figuratively,
frameworks.
not literally. I guess that was a mistake.
Yeah. When people use their faulty framework, like through a religious lens, to interpret the things that you're saying and come to incorrect conclusions about it, you recognize that, but you're not recognizing that you're using a similar faulty framework. It's just that the narrative is different. It's one that you've constructed yourself that you're using as an interpretation framework.
Yeah, all we've been doing since the beginning is asking, how do you tell the difference between I think it was a ghost and it was a ghost? And you keep saying you don't know. And yet you also keep reaching the conclusion that you're convinced it was a ghost. And you're also convinced that it's possible that it's a ghost. And I'm going to guarantee you, there's never been a demonstration, at least not that I'm aware of. And I would bet every dollar in my bank account that you don't have a demonstration that it's even possible for it to be a ghost. So why would you conclude that it's possible if there's been no demonstration that it's possible?
So it's just my self-conscious. Is what I'm I probably could be something made up in my brain.
It's so wild that I can sit here. It's so wild that I can sit here and ask you the question, and instead of answering it, you answer a different question. Yeah. How did you determine that it's possible for ghosts to communicate with you at all?
I don't know.
Then why do you believe it?
But it might not be a ghost.
But
I don't know how to answer that. It just might not be a ghost.
That's just you coming to another determination.
Know what it is.
Okay, this is it. Every time I get you up to the point where you should be saying X, you say something else. Now you're saying it might not be a ghost. The question was, why do you believe it's even possible? And then now you're saying, well, it might not be a ghost. Okay, maybe it's absolutely not even possible for it to be a ghost. Why would you even consider that an option? If we find a dead body and we start listing all the candidate option explanations for why that person is dead, do we include dimensionally shifting beings with scythes who rip the souls out of people and leave bodies laying behind with no evidence? Do we consider that as one of the possible explanations?
I'm sorry, I was thinking about how to respond when you were saying that. No.
And that's the problem. We're kind of stuck here, Chanda. I appreciate it, but the whole thing is, why are you considering something possible and you don't have a reason? And yet, instead of saying, well, maybe I shouldn't consider this possible, instead, you seem to be trying to find a way to protect the fact that you do think it's possible, even though you don't know why. That's where you've got to start digging.
I want it to be possible.
Okay.
I want it to be possible, but I know that if you believe,
I want to be surrounded by naked women right now. Oh wait, I actually don't. But I'm saying the fact that you want something doesn't tell you whether or not it's going to happen. I want to be a million. I want to be a billionaire so I can give it all away. But that's not going to happen just because I think it's possible. I would like to be able to turn invisible and walk around and listen to people's conversations and find out what people are really thinking. But me wanting it doesn't make it so. So the question is you are considering the possibility that there's a ghost there. And you have no reason for it, but you won't give it up. And I have to let you go because we have literally run completely out of time. But I appreciate take that as food for thought. Try and figure out, hey, if I don't have a good reason for believing it's possible, why do I keep believing it's possible? Why do I care more based on what my personal comfort level is than what I have good reason to think is true? Keep digging on that, Chanda. I apologize. I can't give you a word. I gotta let you go, but call us back another time. So Shannon Q is here.
We did it. Woo!
She did. Woo! Hey, Arden, what's getting ready to happen right now?
You guys are going to get sent to Calling It Now with Jimmy and Javon. So stick around.
So enjoy that. Go tell Jimmy I said hi.
Him?
Actually, tell him I said fuck off.
That's right. Fuck off, Jimmy.
No, Jimmy, Shannon said, tell Jimmy, I'm only here because Shannon wanted me to tell you to fuck off. It's engagement. He'll be fine.
Get a click out of it. In the meantime, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks everybody for calling. Thank you to our call screeners, our moderators, our producer. Patreon.com/calltheline and linemerch.com. To keep supporting us here, don't forget to like and subscribe. It genuinely helps.